Good morning, Unleashed Lund loyalists. Thanks for tuning in live each weekday at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. Remember, please like and subscribe and listen where you get your podcasts. Be on the lookout for Lund loyalists perks by joining the club. And if you really want your comments read during the show, you can use supers and stickers. Now, as close to on time as he gets, here's Johnny.
Yes. Good morning. Hope you are outstanding. Let me just fix this up a little bit. All right, we're good. Except for that. My goodness. Good morning. Hope you are well. We're going to get Matt Maiocco on the show in less than 5 minutes, so we got to be fast. A lot of Steph Curry stuff as they're going back and forth with the Warriors. They win, I tell you. I even have the box score to prove it as they beat Minnesota. So we'll get more into that a little bit later on in the show, but obviously off-season stuff is what we're going to discuss, and Matt Maiocco is going to help us, coordinators, moves, all sorts of things that Matty Maiocco knows. Good morning. Look at this, man. There's tons of people in the chat already today. Do remember that not only can you watch us on YouTube, and please subscribe, give us a thumbs up, all those kind of things. And as we said, if you want to get your question answered on the air, if you got questions for Matt Maiocco, just use those supers and stickers, please, and we'll make sure we get those on the air and acknowledge everybody. So YouTube, make sure that you are subscribing, liking, all those kind of things. After the show, we hit up with a podcast, so Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast, we've got that as well. We're live on Twitter /X at John Lund Radio, at John Lund Radio on Instagram. So you take us wherever you want. A lot of different platforms and ways you can listen and watch the show, and please spread the word. One more day on the website, and then I won't have to tell you about all these places because it'll be in one place. It's up to me. It's taking me a minute to learn the website and all that kind of stuff, but I'm very, very close to unveiling that. I think we have a soft launch going on that, but ready to unveil that very shortly. So again, Matty Maiocco is going to join us in a few minutes. Before then, thank you for making the time. As we always say, Jacob is here already. Steve is here. Good morning. Frisco native 415. Gizmo is here. San Jose Jazz fan is here. Joy is the best. I wonder if Joy locks herself in because you have the children around, or maybe you took them to school. My wife is just like, see ya, takes the two kids and that's it. Enrique is here. Hurley Bird is one of my favorites. By the way, is anybody having any problems? Because one of my favorites, New Era 84, said he's having problems with the new setup, and he puts a comment on and then it goes away and he's blocking. And I don't block anybody. I tell anybody, if you ever have any issues with the show or getting through, I'm not in the business of losing viewers, listeners, or anything else. I like everybody. It's a safe space in here, as we always talk about. No tolerating nastiness. We did have a bit of something yesterday, but I don't think it was any big deal. Enrique, good to see you. Jeff, hello, Jeff. He was always one of the first ones in. He started 7:41 here, man. I got to get up a little earlier. We were pushing it today. There's so much good stuff going on today with Curry's back and forth, and Curry after the game on ESPN, and Windhorse and Kerr, and a lot of good stuff that we need to talk about in regards to the Warriors today. But we are going to start with Matt Maiocco, and as soon as I see Matty in the green room, I will pop him up, and he is by no means late. 12 after 8 is what it is right now. So again, very, very nice to see you today. There is a ton to get to. Let me see if there's a few things I can hit up. Let me see here. Let me see if I can, let me make sure. Oh, you are so lucky, Joy. My 18-year-old drives them all to school every day. I'm home with the youngest and our sleepy dogs. It's quiet. How awesome is that? Well, you've got all the kids there, and our house is actually probably crazier. Our kids are always sick. My wife still has to drive them because we have the 21-year-old in college. Then we have a freshman in high school, and we have a 7th grader, and the freshman obviously can't drive yet, but she's getting close. And it looks like I thought it was done teaching a kid how to drive, but it looks like I'm going to have to teach my stepdaughter to drive too, which that can be nerve wracking. I remember my kid was not a good driver at first. He was like 10 o'clock, 2 o'clock, like with a death grip. And all kids are like this, and they'd stop and they're like, oh my God, what are you doing? Like, learn how to just, ease on the brake. And he's fine now. But my God, man, you see your life flash before your eyes a few times, teaching a kid how to drive. My God, man, it's absolutely crazy. So anyway, I know Matt Maiocco knows that. He's got a couple of daughters. So we'll get into that with him in a few minutes. Oh, yeah, Isaac, man, we got a green room back here. This is absolutely. I'm fancy, Isaac. What we have back here is I've got a screen in front of me. This is pretty cool. We did this with a new setup. I have a screen. And what I have is all the videos that I'm going to play on the show today, all the pictures, all the things. It can be confusing, especially for a simpleton like me. And so, yeah, I got to keep my head on a swivel here. I mean, it's absolute. No, I didn't block rocking. Sorry, I'm going ADD. No, I did not. I did not block rocking. In fact, if Walter knows, in fact, we got a Walter on the show today because, well, he's busy. But the Giants do have an international signing after they missed out on Roki. I think they signed like 15 guys. That is a great question that you have, Greg, and I'll pop that up for. We're all kidding. I know you're kidding. We'll pop that up for Matty Maiocco. If you have questions on Matty or for Matty, let me know. It's not like the radio, right? At KMBR where like we're not letting you guys ask a question. It's not happening, especially with Papa. He's got to get his time in. He's got to get his touches, and I barely could get in there. So there's no way you were getting in there. So if you do have something specific that I don't ask Matty, then you let me know. In fact, you know what I'm going to do? Let's see. You know what I'm going to do here? Let me see. Hold on one second. I'm going to get to these the media things because I did something fancy for Matty when he comes in here. Check this out. So I did, I do my normal background. In fact, I haven't gone through that yet. I need to, but I did a fancy one that's just a Maiocco one. So when he comes in, he's going to be fancy. He's going to be impressed. But since he's not here, I'll just show you. Look at that. There's a little Matt. I put that a little too high, didn't I? There's a little Matt Maiocco right there. Dun, 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 dun. So when he comes on, I'll be like, hey, what's going on, man? Super fancy for Matt Maiocco. Let me get my normal one up there. Come on, man. I need the bricks. There we go. All right. Before Matty gets here today, Matt Maiocco, of course, leading things off, and he'll join us in just a moment. In fact, I see him down there. We'll get into the 49ers offseason, Curry, Worry. We got a ton of stuff. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, it's Matt Maiocco. He's the best. What's happening? We doubled.
Not much. How you doing? Oh, wow. I'm just like.
Oh, you look good.
Yeah.
Look at this. Hey, I got something fancy for you. Just showing everybody.
Okay, let's hear
that. Like a little picture of you up there. See that? Yeah, that's the background that we're going to use. Since
nice.
We gotta have something fancy for you. Make it really good.
Yeah, it's very flattering, John. Thank you.
Here. I just took it away. Now we're a little closer. Now you and I are more intimate.
Let me just make sure.
You look good.
Okay, everything sounds good.
Yeah, you sound amazing. You look good too.
Oh, thank you.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing great. I know we got to get.
How's Lund Unleashed treating you?
You know what? It's been pretty amazing. It's pretty cool, and you and I can both attest to this. Not that I got paid by the word, because if I had gotten paid by the word, I'd be living in a box down by the river. But I actually get to finish a sentence. It's nice. Finish a thought. It's kind of refreshing, to be honest with you.
No one's cutting you off.
No, I love that guy, but you know what I mean. I mean, you and I know him for a long time. And, anyway,
he's as knowledgeable. I don't know how there's. I mean, are we just gonna? Yeah, Greg Papa. I don't know how there's enough time in the day to do all the things he does as far as watching film and knowing everything about everything.
Well, there's two things. It's all he is singularly focused like this. There's really nothing else. Although he is in relationships, so I give him that. But it's 24/7, and people think that he's kidding when he says he's driving the Tesla, his Tesla down the road and just putting his hand on there. Because I have one of those too, and you could watch an iPad if your hand was on the wheel, and I don't do that. Are you kidding? But he does. He actually watches like an iPad. He takes one in the shower. He maximizes time like nobody else. Like who takes an iPad in the shower? Like that's my true? 5 minute. It's 100% true. And he actually has something that he puts over it. I was saying this yesterday. the shower is like the 5 to 7 minutes a day that I have that I don't get bothered, and it's a great think tank. And so that's the best. I would never take an iPad into the shower. He really does. I'm not kidding.
Yeah. So he's gonna at some point we're gonna be like reading about him getting electrocuted or something.
Yeah.
And everybody people will say, well, he went out the way he wanted to. He was watching the Carolina Panthers third down offense.
It's unbelievable. Double deep zone and all this kind of stuff. All right. We got a ton to do today. One quick thing I wanted to ask you, because I know you got to get out of here at some point too, but I'm wearing the Cal Fire hat today. I was thinking of you because what was this, 2019? And I remember when I was living in 18. And I was living in Walnut Creek, and you could smell the fires. And I'm originally from LA, so I know some people down there have greatly been affected. But I remember in 18, that was, did you lose your childhood home, or there was something, right? I know you went up there.
Yeah, so my mom had just moved to Paradise, a retirement community there, where it's a retirement community, but everybody had their own, owned their own houses in that community. And so she got really lucky because the fire started at the other end of town. And if you know where Paradise is, it's, up in the foothills by Chico. There's basically one way in and one way out. And where she lived was kind of on the Chico side down the Skyway.
That's right.
And so she got out pretty easily. And my brother worked for PG&E. And so I think he gave her like a heads up, like, hey, there's this fire, get out of town. And she did. And the other part of it, I'm going to give advice to people who are impacted in Southern California. Get on the insurance quickly.
Especially now in California, everybody's canceling.
The one thing, like I said, that I think that fire happened on a Thursday in Paradise. And Saturday,
I remember you running up there,
yeah. Saturday morning, I went up, and my brother took me, behind the lines, and so we had pictures of everything, the before and after. And the insurance company, I think they were just like, they had so many claims to process that we immediately submitted everything, and she was made whole within, seriously, 5 days. And
you serious? Oh
yeah, it happened so quickly. But then I heard, horror stories from other people saying, oh, we didn't, we waited, or this and that, and now we're jumping through hoops. And so, man, just get on it quickly. If you're impacted in any way, or know somebody who's impacted, just boom, get the ad insurance ball rolling.
Good advice. Absolutely. I think it's up to, they're saying like 250 billion plus now in Southern California. It's going to be crazy. All right, let's get to some Niners talk. And I just grabbed this, stole this from you, and then we'll put our beautiful faces back up there. But just so people know, at Maiocco MBCS, please make sure you're following Maddie. How about that? How fancy is that? I just grabbed that. You just put that up. What, about 15 minutes ago? It says 7 minutes, but I probably grabbed that like 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, and
that's how we have it around here. It's how
honestly,
it works.
I did that because I knew I was going to be going on with you, and I just wanted to have it just kind of seriously. I just wanted to have it organized, here are the names. And so,
I'll take this off the board so we can see your face, but I'm just letting people know, there's what you just thrown out there, because that's what people want to know. Coordinator jobs, offense, special teams, defense. Can I ask you one question real quick before we get into all this? Yeah. What is this rule? So Kyle has a guy that he likes, right? In Clint Kubiak, right? Or Clay Kubiak, excuse me, in Clay Kubiak. But he can't hire him as his offensive coordinator. What is that rule?
Yeah, it's weird? The Rooney Rule. And
I see. So can they satisfy the Rooney Rule then hire Clay Kubiak?
Yeah.
Oh,
now
okay, I see. Okay.
And I reached out to the league. If there's any penalty imposed or anything,
it's such
like
a joke
that.
The way they do it anyway.
Well,
my gosh.
Yeah,
Leslie Frazier's. I think he's head coach, or he's gonna interview somewhere, and it's like, I know Leslie Frazier's not getting a job. That's just to satisfy the Rooney Rule. That's too bad.
Well, there's two parts of it, and there are people who believe the Rooney Rule has outlived its purpose. I mean, I understand why it was put in, and it's all political now, where you stand on it. But, people ask me, why can't teams just hire the person that they want to hire? And my answer to that is, that's the whole idea behind the Rooney Rule. It's just that, in the past, the NFL determined that owners can't be left to make their own decisions because they rarely step out of that box that they're so familiar with. And so by elevating the profiles of, minority candidates, it just maybe levels the playing field, that at least gets some minority candidates in the door when they wouldn't have ordinarily gotten in the door. And I'll use the example, Clay Kubiak, the 49ers don't have an opening at offensive coordinator. Right. It is a position that is there now that they're going to use to reward Clay Kubiak because he was essentially doing those duties anyway. So by, the thought was, well, why would anybody interview for that job when everybody already knows Clay Kubiak's getting that job because the position is being created for Clay Kubiak? And my answer is, and yes, it's, this isn't the earth-shattering or anything, but that tweet I just put out, it included Noah Pauley's name. I didn't know who Noah Pauley is
from Iowa State,
from Iowa State, and before that, North Dakota State. But I will say this: from this point forward, every time I hear, I will hear Noah Pauley's name now, and I'll go, "Oh, that was the guy that the 49ers interviewed."
That's a good point.
So it at least puts him on the radar, and it's also a great opportunity. I don't know what your viewers here think of Kyle Shanahan, but I can tell you around the nation, Kyle Shanahan is highly thought of.
Of course.
And so if you're, I was going to say an entry-level coach, but he's been coaching in college football. But if you're a young coach, if you have an opportunity, whether you're on a Zoom or face-to-face, to talk to Kyle Shanahan and he's asking you questions and you have the opportunity to ask him questions, heck yeah, you're going to take advantage of that opportunity.
That's a great point.
And it's also, Shanahan, I'm sure he's very honest with these guys. I'm sure he told him, hey, look, I'm not going to hire you now for this position, but every year there's changeover on a coaching staff, and he'll keep him in mind for future openings.
That's a really good point. All right, so I'm going to pop this up really quick just so you know. So you've got Sal up there, Deshae Townsend, Staley, Kubiak, Pauley, special teams. Nick Sorensen, of course, was the DC. Jet Modkins, Chris Banjo. I remember him as a player, and Chris Tabor, who's a veteran. So where are they, you think, in this process for these positions?
Well, can you put that graphic back up?
Yeah, of course I can. Look at this.
Okay. So look at that. If we're talking Rooney Rule, they can hire a defensive coordinator today, right now.
Yep.
Can hire a special teams coordinator right now. I would think on defense, they're looking, Saleh appears to be the front runner. There are certain names that I thought that they would interview that they haven't yet. And the way I worded it, known candidates. I don't know what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know if they've talked to anybody on the phone to gauge interest or how they are as far as setting up interviews. But I would think that once Robert Saleh's fate is kind of settled as far as he's interviewed with the Jags. Mm-hmm. Today's Thursday, right? No,
yeah.
Today's Thursday.
Thursday. In fact, I have another fancy graphic. Look at that. There's Diana Rossini. So just so people know, Vegas. How about the Cowboys? All that kind of stuff. So I'll take that down because I don't want to cover your face. But
yeah, no, it's
are those? Is that legit? Like, does he have a shot at these jobs? The Raiders. Raiders. It sounds like Ben Johnson. Cowboys, I have no idea what Jerry is thinking, but is he? Because if he's legit, obviously he's not going to be the defensive coordinator of the 49ers.
Well, he might be legit. Doesn't mean he's going to get any of these jobs,
right?
But I would say that probably the best thing that happened to Robert Saleh is that he got fired after 5 games with a 2-3 record and right there in the hunt of the AFC East. I think Robert Saleh. He's the kind of guy, if he gets in an interview, he's going to impress people. He's an impressive guy. Now, will they win the? Will it be a popular move with any fan base? Probably not, because if you're talking about the Jaguars, who do the Jaguars need? I would think that they would need. So many of these spots, an offensive-minded head coach, right?
For Trevor Lawrence, make sure that their quarterback is maximized, right?
Absolutely. And then so if you hire Saleh, then it becomes like, okay, well, now the more important hire is who's your offensive coordinator. And I don't know that he got the offensive coordinator right with the Jets. They didn't
Aaron Rodgers.
Well, the offensive coordinator. Yeah. I mean, you say,
which was Nathaniel Hackett, who was in Denver and was buddies with Rodgers, right?
That regime, obviously they drafted Zach Wilson. That didn't work out. Rodgers is, whatever's happened to him.
Right.
Okay. So there's that. The other one is the Cowboys. They have their quarterback, but again, same question. Who's going to be their offensive coordinator? The one place that does need a culture change would be the Raiders.
Oh, boy.
And so, I don't know that Saleh has any history with Tom Brady.
And that's who's making the hire, right? This isn't Mark Davis. This is Tom Brady, right?
I think Mark Davis has proven without a shadow of a doubt that he's incapable of running the football side of things. And now there's no Tom Telesco, there's no general manager who's leading that search. So who the heck is doing it? It's got to be Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think Mark Davis is working the phones and talking to, other owners or other general managers and kind of canvassing who the best candidates are? No. I mean, so
well, you know what his history is, and this, is that it's so weird. If he does it, so it's like, I know what I don't know, and he leaves it to somebody else, which Jed York did an amazing job, I think, of just saying, I'm going to stay out of it, and then these football guys are going to do it, and they've been successful. Is that when I was working for the Raiders, Mark would take advice from his friends. So like Bill Romanowski, Cliff Branch, George Atkinson. He was like, that's what he was doing. He was fanboying those guys, and so he would take advice. And I think the same thing is happening with Brady. I think the difference is, even though we don't ever know if a star player is going to be a great personnel guy, is that Brady, I think, is in control. I don't know about 100%, but he's got a lot of say. So that might mean Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions OC, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would say with Tom Brady is that, even though he wasn't allowed in NFL facilities this year, he has a pretty good gauge on what's happening around the league. And so from what I understand, I know people at that Fox crew that he works with, and apparently one of the not the complaint, but if there's any critique that people who work with him have of him, is that he gets over prepared. So that means, it's kind of like he knows too much. He grinds the film and all that. So at least he has a really good knowledge of what's happening around the league. And we know one thing, I don't think he's not in it to make friends. He's in it to win games. That's just the way he was as a player. I'm assuming that's going to be the way he is as a part owner. So he's not going to be like, oh, I like this guy. He's a friend of mine. I don't know how many friends he has in the business, because, if you're that competitive and you're that driven to win, friendships. Yeah,
it's true. Like whatever. Michael Jordan. I remember Jordan didn't have any friends in the NBA. It was just because that's the way he was, and he was so competitive. That's a great point by you. That, like, how many guys he's got relationships in the Patriots realm of things, and maybe some friends with the Bucks, but around the league, you're right. He wasn't a chummy guy.
Yeah, and I would say that, if you're going to look for chum, look for him to hire someone, it would have been Vrabel, right?
Right. That's who I thought maybe they'd get, but he was probably too far along with the Patriots, right?
Right. So point. I don't know that. I mean, the key for the Raiders is, man, they got to figure out a lot of things.
Oh man.
And it's a culture situation. So I could see them hiring a defensive culture guy, and I think that's what Robert Saleh is. A culture guy. Of course, they probably thought that same thing about Antonio Pierce, and that didn't work out. But I know that the initial question was about Saleh.
Yeah, that's all right.
But
what do they do if it's not Saleh? If Saleh gets one of these jobs or something? Because if he doesn't, let me ask you this: if he doesn't get a head coaching job, so he's already talked to the Jags, he's going to talk to the Raiders, going to talk to the Cowboys. If he doesn't get a head coaching job, is he definitely the defensive coordinator?
I don't know. Definitely. I mean, but the one thing that is interesting to me is his name hasn't come up in any other defensive coordinator jobs. Now, some of that might have to do with what, only, am I right? Only one of 6 jobs has been filled. Vrabel's the only one that's been filled, right?
Right. That's it. Yeah.
So is Vrabel going to hire Robert Saleh as defense coordinator? Probably not. But what about some of these other, vacancies that are filled? So that's why I think it's important for the 49ers to get on it. And, once they find out, I mean, if Saleh's their guy, and all indications seem to be that he is, they have to get on it. What Saleh has to determine is whether, I mean, he wants to be a head coach again. There's no question. Everybody who's ever been a head coach and didn't succeed wants another crack at it. What Saleh has to determine is what's his best avenue toward becoming a head coach again. Is it to go back? And again, people in the Bay Area, for whatever reason, are mixed on this, but there will be people around the country who look at it like, oh, Saleh's just, with his tail between his legs, going back to Kyle Shanahan to get under that Shanahan umbrella where they produce, assistant coaches who become head coaches. They produce, personnel guys who become general managers. He's going back there because that's the easy way, to become a head coach again. So what he'd have to answer is, A, is the personnel there with the 49ers that makes it easy for me to reestablish the 49ers as a top flight defense? Or is there a better opportunity somewhere else? And I'll just, because you mentioned his name, Ben Johnson. Who's Ben Johnson's defensive coordinator going to be? Would Saleh be in the mix for that? Well, that to me would seem like a pretty good opportunity, depending, where Ben Johnson ends up. But that's what Saleh's going to have to determine. Yeah. Now, there's some other defensive coordinator names, and the reason I worded it on that thing I posted, known candidates. So these are people who have interviewed, or that Kyle Shanahan himself has said are candidates: Brandon Staley, Nick Sorensen.
Yeah, there you go.
From day one, from the moment that Saleh was fired with the Jets, I thought the number one candidate would be Jeff Ulbrich.
Yeah.
Because Ulbrich, ran that Jets defense very well. He and Shanahan know each other very well. Ulbrich has the Bay Area ties, and Ulbrich was going to become available. We all knew from the moment he took over as interim head coach, unless the Jets turned it around and we're a playoff team and we're flying high into the playoffs, Jeff Ulbrich wouldn't be back with the Jets. So that's a name that has always been not even in the back of my mind. It's been in the front of my mind, but he hasn't interviewed yet. Who knows if he will, but that's why I worded it that way. Known candidates, people we know for sure have spoken to Shanahan formally about this job.
All right. As far as other offseason issues, number one on the list, number 1, 2, and 3 on the list is Brock Purdy. And not only is he going to be talked about locally, nationally, he's the next one up. Didn't have maybe the season that he would have liked. The team didn't have the season they would have liked. So where does that leave Brock? And not only from a financial standpoint, but the big question now is, and I know you've talked to Kyle about it, all you guys have talked to Kyle about it, is how quickly can it happen? Because normally Parag Marathi and the 49ers around training camp would be nice, but it's different. It's different because Brock's got to get in there. He's got to do the OTAs, and his agent is not going to let him do that. You got to throw the ball around with Ricky Pearsall and Brandon Ayuk. And so to do all those things, you got to get a deal done. Both sides say they want to get a deal done, but that doesn't mean one will happen. So how do you see this, not only from a financial standpoint, but from a timing standpoint?
It's different because he's a quarterback.
Yep.
You can't have the quarterback twisting in the wind. You just can't. And we saw what happened with a wide receiver and a left tackle when that happened. And it was obvious, being around. It was a huge distraction, and it set the 2024 season back. There's no question it did. Just the drama, and the hold in was more distracting than the hold out.
Oh, my God. And he was on the field, and
he was on the field.
Oh my God, is he getting traded?
He walked up to Shanahan and give him the hug on the field.
We're trying to decipher what that means.
Yeah, what's going on? And then, I was reporting about 49ers had trades in place with teams, and it was just like all he had to do was sign off on it. Turned out there were more trades that they were working on, so it was a huge distraction. I look back at 2017 when they made the midseason trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. He starts the final 5 games of that season. He did not have a contract for the 2018 season. What they do, they signed him, I believe it was like February 15th. So the middle of February, they got that done. Kyle Shanahan talked about last week looking at the offseason calendar and looking and going 14 weeks until phase 1 of the offseason program begins. And I'm not good with converting weeks to.
Are you looking at calendar right now?
Well, I'm looking at calendar because I wrote down there we go. April 21st is phase 1 of the offseason program. So you ask me what the timeline is.
Yeah.
That's it. It's 14 weeks, apparently. Phase 1 of the offense of the program of the 49ers offseason program. Now that's just like conditioning, going out, working with strength and conditioning coach.
Right.
But I think they expect their quarterback there to set the tone.
Well, and just like you just said, by the way, my wife made fun of me about this, but I have this.
There we go.
I got to write everything down. I got to write. I got to count. I got a day planner, and they don't even sell them anymore. I had to order it for the year, and my wife is just like, "Why don't you just do it online?" I'm like, I have to write things down. I'm sorry. And so I love to see that you've got something like that because it makes me feel better.
Yeah, usually, and this wasn't a great example of this. Usually when I write something down, I remember it better because I'm like taking the time to write it down. It didn't work in this case because I had to refer to it.
But you had it written down. Like if you
it was more theatrical.
I liked it though. I think it was really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So, but here's what I want people to understand too, that all these phases, Brock's all excited. He wants to get back. And I don't think people realize that even though you throw the ball to Brandon Ayuk for years, they were still never on the same page this year. And Ricky Pearsall with the injuries and the shooting, they really didn't get on the same page. So they got to get out and, Brock's going to have to pay for this, but a guy who can buy 10 Toyotas can probably figure out a way, where they go down to San Diego, he pays the way, they all throw together. I mean, that's kind of the thing in the off season. So that's all got to get done because he may want to do all these things, but his agent's going to go, no. You're not taking a chance on $250 or $300 million, 50, 55, 60 a year, whatever it's going to end up being. You can work out and everything, but you're not going to do anything that could risk anything whatsoever because if you have an injury, then we have a major problem. So he's not going to be in OTAs. He's not going to be doing these things. He's not going to be, I'm not going to say he's going to be doing what he was doing, a couple of years ago, rehabbing an arm, but he's not going to do a ton until he gets that deal done.
Well, it's about leverage, right? I mean, how can, from Brock Purdy and his agent standpoint, how can we expedite this? And the answer is to withhold services until it's need to be. But it's more than just the tangible of getting on the field, working with people. It's the other part of it. It's just the tone that it sets in the franchise with the organization. I guarantee you, if phase 1, phase 2, whatever OTAs, the offseason program rolls around and Brock Purdy isn't there, everybody in the organization, the sales and marketing team, the IT guy.
Oh, you're right.
Joan and payroll. Everybody will feel the impact.
That's a great point.
Starting quarterback not there. Not just the locker room, not just the coaching staff, not just everybody. That's just the way it is, man. The quarterback is a different beast. He is different than any other person in all of professional sports. And the moment Brock Purdy shows up, the moment Brock Purdy is happy and has a smile and grabs the feather pen and puts his John Hancock to paper, everybody in the entire organization just takes a deep breath and is like, okay, it's on.
That's a great point. All right, real quick, because I know you jump out of here. A couple of other guys that we talk about, and then I got to let you go. Dre Greenlaw's an interesting one. Played basically half of a game, and is there anybody out there that would give him money? And that I've been saying until I'm blue in the face. I can't see Debo returning. I know what John said to you guys, but I mean, I see Purse on the slot. I see Ayuk coming back. I see Jennings on the other side, and I see Debo as a kick returner. And you can't pay $24 million to a kick returner. So those two guys, just really quick.
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thrown off on that social media post where the wags, wives and girlfriends got together and basically, they were saying goodbye to Dre Greenlaws. And I apologize. I don't know if that's girlfriend, fiance.
Yeah.
So anyway, I apologize for that, not knowing.
Yeah, no, you're fine.
But, it struck me like, what's going on here? Because I can't imagine the 49ers during their exit meeting said, Dre, it's been nice knowing you. Good luck wherever your travels take you. I just couldn't imagine that happened. And Kyle and John said that didn't happen. They want him back. I'm kind of with you. If your belief is who would give him a multi-year deal? I mean, he's a great player. We saw in a very limited sample size how important he is to that defense. But unless you know exactly how he fits in your defense, and unless you really know all the other factors, how well he's liked, respected, all that, I don't know that another team would take the risk.
Unless Robert Saleh was somewhere and wanted to set a tone. And let's say, I'm just throwing it out there, the Raiders, and it's an Achilles injury, but let's say they gave him 3 years. I mean, if I'm the Niners, it's like, you got to do a prove it deal, but he may,
then you know what? If you're Robert Saleh, the general manager's going, are you sure?
Yeah, right. Good point.
So you're using some of your good credit right off the bat. And if Robert Saleh is wrong, then, can't really.
Especially if it's Tom Brady, because remember when he intercepted Brady and then he got Brady to sign the ball. So, I mean, Brady knows
Brady's probably like, no way.
I ain't signing that guy.
Yeah. And then the other one, Debo.
Real quick on Debo.
I just think Debo, I think they're a better team with Debo. And I don't know what that role is, but we saw the injuries. I mean, can you just assume that Ricky Pearsall is going to be the guy? Can you assume that Brandon Ayuk is going to return and be where he was in 2023? I don't think the cap hit is much at all for Debo. I don't think there's much of a trade market for him on the final year of his deal.
I agree with you there. Yeah, I don't.
And you know what? He's kind of prickly. Oh boy. He kind of blows hot and cold, but the people in the locker room really like him. Mm-hmm. And then Kyle Shanahan really likes him. And so the thing is too, once, like what John Lynch said, on camera for everybody to see, basically, I mean, I asked him straight out, do you expect him on the team? And he said, yes. We're not in the business of giving away good players or whatever he said. Well,
and you believe that because everybody knows, lying season is all the time that they say certain things. When he said that, like, they were really emphatic about Brock. Clearly, they sound a little bit like we don't know with Dre.
Yeah.
How did you take that answer? Not only what he said, but how he said it.
I just think that if you're sitting up there lying about a player, what is that? That sends a horrible signal because now Debo's going, oh, I'm back. And then if 2 months down the road they say, hey, Debo, you're not back. Then Debo's like, when his teammates call him like, hey, I thought you were coming back. Yeah, I thought so too. So guess that shows you can never trust what John Lynch says. I think that once the 49ers have tried to, John Lynch has said it repeatedly that, he wants to treat players like he wanted to be treated as a player. And Kyle Shanahan, kind of his MO is he's brutally honest with these guys. So, I mean, you might be right, but I'd say if you are right, then that strips away big time at the credibility of those guys, of what they've tried to build since they've been here.
That's a good point. All right, we got to let you go because you got to run, but look at that. Todd says, love Matt. He shook his hand outside Giant Stadium.
Wow, that was a few years ago because it's been a while since I've been to Giants Stadium. Giants, I'm assuming means
he's probably talking a Giants game. Todd's probably talking a Giants game. Yeah, I would think so, right?
Oh, I remember Todd. Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh, you're the nicest guy. Seriously, You're not one of those arrogant guys. You're a super nice guy. You always shake hands. Big Giants fan. We don't have time to talk Giants, but anyway,
Jim, I would say, yeah, I know all the. John, thank you so much.
Hey, thank you for taking the time. I appreciate it. You are the best. You were one of the first guys to call me and say, hey, so I appreciate it. I'm having a great time with this, but always appreciate your insight, and everybody loves you, man. The chat line's going crazy, man. But we'll talk to you soon, okay?
All right, John. Good luck with everything, and let's obviously stay in touch.
You got it. Okay. That's the great Matt Maiocco. Thanks, man. That is the great Matt Maiocco giving us some great insight into the 49ers. If you have any thoughts, hit us up on the sorry about that. Here, let me get that back. There we go. Hit us up on the text line there, and there is Matt Maiocco. I did leave him up in the corner there just because, even though he's gone, let's let him live there for a moment, because we're going to talk some 49ers and some of the things he said there. And then there's a ton of Steph Curry. Don't go anywhere, because this is getting really interesting as far as the Warriors are concerned, as we are just a few weeks away from the deadline. So we're going to hit that up next. A lot of great stuff on the chat line here, on the what I would call the text line, but the chat line here. Let me hit some of those things that Maddie said and answer some questions there. Again, I will pop up the best ones, and we will discuss. You can also, if you absolutely positively want your chat to be read, all you have to do is hit up on those supers and those stickers. Thank you very much in advance for those kind of things. If you're new to the show, thanks for joining us. It is Unleashed. John Lund with you. Hanging out in the Bay Area, formerly of 95.7 The Game and KNBR. Please make sure you subscribe and hit those thumbs up and the likes on YouTube. We are live also on Instagram at John Lund Radio, and on X/Twitter as well at John Lund Radio. We are here 8 a.m. Pacific time every single weekday. We are contemplating, a lot of people hit me up yesterday, we are contemplating, I think it's Saturday, maybe 10 a.m., and we'll do select post-game shows. I probably should have done a post-game show last night because of everything that was so crazy going on with the Warriors kind of still trying to do this 2 timeline thing. So we'll get into that in just 1 second. But let me finish up with some football talk. First of all, just to go maybe in reverse order, if you haven't been watching the show, look, I respect Matt's opinion, and Matt knows what the hell he's talking about, and he's around these guys all the time. And he did ask the question to John Lynch about Deebo Samuel, and he said, yeah, we're not in the business of letting good players go. I'm just trying to do the math. And, Brock Purdy's deal is not going to go from $1 million to $60 million next year. It's not going to do that. It's going to slowly ramp up. But I'm still looking at the situation and saying, okay, I get what he said too. Well, is Pearsall absolutely going to be ready to go? No. But he's a first-round pick that showed in a few games that he can play. Should you have to earn everything? Yes, but there's a financial decision. And let's be honest, there's a reason why they drafted Ricky Pearsall in the first round. Did they absolutely, positively need a receiver? No. They actually needed offensive line help, defensive line help. They needed just about everything but a receiver. Just going into last year, this is obviously they were thinking maybe Ayuk would get done, but they did get Ayuk done. They did have Deebo. They did have Jawan. Ricky Pearsall's a 4th receiver, and you're taking him in the first round. I think their thought process had to be, insurance for Brandon Ayuk, but more so insurance for Deebo Samuel, who they had already shopped before. And I still look at this thing in the season. We didn't get into it with Maddie, but the season he had, I don't know if he was injured. I don't know if he's older. We assumed that, he's kind of got a running back body. He runs over people. He's getting 27, 28, which is extremely young. But when you're a running back, which essentially he's both, and they've had to use him at that way, then maybe your career is shortened just a little bit. I didn't like the season he had. I don't think he's worth $24 million. I also think, while not calling John Lynch a liar, and that's just how sports works. You can't always tell the truth. And so we as a media, we've at least gotten conditioned a little bit to think to ourselves, well, we got to read into not only what he's saying, but how he's saying it. Like when Kyle Shanahan, I can bring that back up to you, but we won't. You've been watching the show. When Kyle Shanahan in that very press conference just I was going to say some term that he let's just say he was very emphatic about how he felt about Brock Purdy. He left no question whatsoever that Brock Purdy will now and in the future be the quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers. So any speculation I had weeks ago that maybe they could get Darnold for less and trade Purdy for a 1 with a desperate team in the top 10, and then now they have, pick 8 or 9 and pick 11, and now we're cooking with gas, and you can look at some of these offensive and defensive line issues that I talked about a couple of days ago, where the Rams on the offensive and defensive line, they had 9 sacks on Darnold. They do now what the 49ers used to do. And so the 49ers need to get back to that. So I just, for a brief moment, I thought to myself, did they do that? And then after listening to Kyle, it's like they're not doing that. They're signing this guy. And I think they're going to get it done early. I think it's going to be fair for everybody. I think that deal is going to get done. And it's not about how much. It is. Don't get me. That was stupid of me to say. It is about how much, but it's also the timing that Maddie and I were just talking about. So that's huge. Debo, I just don't see. Dre Greenlaw, I don't think is leaving. As you heard Matt say, that there was the wives and girlfriends, the wags, and they were saying goodbye to Dre. I just don't see a team out there coming off an Achilles injury and playing half of one game where a team would go out there and say, you know what? We're going to give you a multi-year contract. He is the dictionary definition right now of a prove-it deal. We're going to give you a one-year deal, and you do what you normally do, then we have no problem, and we'll sign you to a multi-year deal. But the 49ers, if you're paying attention, and I know that you are, they worry quite a bit about injuries. Some teams will take risks. Hi, Trent Baalke. Some teams will absolutely say, you know what, I'll bet on the high side of this guy. And the 49ers used to do that when Baalke was around and even early in the John and Kyle administration. But now it's like, no, if you get injured too much, Eric Armstead or Jimmy Garoppolo or on and on and on, and I know you didn't like, you're like, Garoppolo's got to go. But one of the main reasons he had to go was because he couldn't stay healthy. They just got sick of it. And when he played, they won. And when he didn't play, they didn't win. And they thought, we got to upgrade. Now, whether it worked or not, it didn't. And then they got Brock. Is kind of beside the point. They don't like to have injured players. Nobody does. But the 49ers got burned by it enough, D Ford, that they just said, you know what? It's going to be part of the equation. A major part of the equation is if a guy can stay healthy. Look at Javon Hargrave. He was hurt a lot with the 49ers. He's no longer here because he was, I'm not going to say he was largely ineffective. He certainly wasn't the player we saw in Philadelphia in the NFC Championship game who wrecked the game. And the 49ers on the first day of free agency went, here's $80 million to correct the Javon Kinlaw mistake, to correct the Buckner mistake. We're going to get that rectified. And it didn't work. But part of the reason it didn't work was because he wasn't healthy. So they got rid of that. So I'm not going to say they're going to do that with Dre Greenlaw because as we learned this year, there's nobody ready to step up next to Fred Warner. It's the whole reason Fred Warner had to sit there and play all year. I've got a fractured ankle, but what am I going to do? Leave Jalen Graham out here with D Winters? So they have some young linebackers, but nobody that's going to be Dre Greenlaw. And Dre Greenlaw is an emotional leader, and we can get into Hufanga. I didn't ask Maddie about Hufanga, but those two guys you'd love to have back, but what kind of money are you going to have? So there's that situation. You can give us any thoughts on Matt Maiocco. If you missed Matt Maiocco, just go back. We'll put it in the podcast. Obviously, I'll separate that out. So we'll post the show, obviously, but then we'll separate that out later. So if you want to go to YouTube and you missed the interview, we'll just post that separately later. Before we get into Curry, and we have a lot of Curry stuff to get into today. It's well worth your time today. So let's see, what else do we have in the NFL? That's what we popped up when Maddie was here. So solid. Deshae Townsend used to be a defensive back in the league. Brandon Staley, which a lot of people are screaming and yelling about. I got to be honest. I don't know what Brandon Staley did. He was the coordinator of a number one defense when he was with the Rams. He was a horrible head coach of the Chargers. Went way too far, even further than Dan Campbell does as far as fourth down. So people think he stinks. And he was some sort of an overseer of this defense. So people don't want anything to do with him. And I totally get that. Guilty by association this year, but Kyle Shanahan does like him. Kyle Shanahan thinks he's very smart. So I'm not going to say he's going to get the job if Solid doesn't, but he's probably in the mix. Clay Kubiak, Maiocco kind of clarified that for us because when I read the story about, well, they can't hire him, that's who they're going to hire because Kyle Shanahan has trust in him. And if you've been watching the show for any period of time, I've been saying the whole time, he needs someone he can trust to bounce things off. And apparently they do that. But I would like to see him named offensive coordinator, and he's somebody Kyle trusts, and it's not easy to get Kyle's trust, especially offensively. And then special teams-wise, other than Sorensen, Chris Banjo played, I remember the Cardinals. Chris Tabor's a guy who's been there a long time. Jeff Modkins is the assistant special teams coach for the Lions, and they have pretty good special teams. So I don't know what that does for you, but just letting you know. I did ask Matt point blank, if Solid doesn't get one of these gigs, is he definitely the defensive coordinator? And I can't imagine he wouldn't be. I think he's number one easily. Ulbrich was the defensive coordinator of the Jets, wasn't a very good head coach, but he's fiery. So I guess I would be okay with that. But Salah's the known commodity. This is Diana Rossini. Robert Saleh will interview for the head coaching vacancy with the Raiders and the Cowboys at some point in the next few days. Those interviews will both be in person. Blah, 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 Arthur Smith. As far as Saleh getting those jobs, and I want the Rooney Rule to work. I want it to be right. And Manny made a great point of the Iowa State guy that wouldn't have ever gotten an interview otherwise. And so now all of a sudden he becomes on the radar. And that happens in business all the time. I've talked to lots of people throughout my career where I knew at that very moment they didn't have something, but I said, when you do, you let me know. And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, there it is. So, that those things happen, and that's definitely something. But as I look at the Raiders and I'm thinking of Tom Brady, I don't think he's getting that head coaching job because we keep hearing Ben Johnson's name. And plus you're in Las Vegas. So you need somebody. Vegas now it's a little bit like LA in terms of they want to win the press conference. So not only do they want to win on the field, they want to win the press conference. They want to excite the fan base, because if you've ever been to Allegiant Stadium, I've been there about 4 times for games now. 3 of those with the 49ers. That stadium just gets taken over by the other team. So I think if I'm Tom Brady, although he's more into substance than style, they've got to get a Sean McVay type of a guy who's got some personality, who can be – that's kind of what you do in L.A., right? You've got to get a great coach, don't get me wrong, but the Pat Rileys and now J.J. Redick is a high-profile guy with the Lakers. That's just kind of what you try to do, is you've got to get a guy with style and substance, kind of like the American Idol. Like, you need everything. And I don't know what Ben Johnson's personality is like, but he is probably the highest profile assistant coach out there. Now, the thing that I find to be funny about that is he's not bringing Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's not bringing Jared Goff. He's not bringing Jahmyr Gibbs. He's not bringing that offensive line. Penny Sewell is not coming to the Raiders. So everybody thinks these guys are brilliant. And as we've established many times on the show, I have never seen a coach, as great as any coach could be, do well with bad players. Bill Walsh didn't early in his career here. He didn't get going until Joe started to be Joe. Bill Belichick, when he lost Brady and the rest of those guys, he sucked, and he's supposedly the greatest coach of all time. I mean, go on down the line. Phil Jackson never took a job without Michael Jordan or Shaq and Kobe. That's what great coaches do. Steve Kerr, if Steve Kerr leaves here, I think Steve Kerr is going to be like Greg Popovich. Greg Popovich is pretty much the only exception to that rule. And I don't know why, because Popovich has enough money. He has other interests. I don't know what it is. I don't know if he wants to prove it. Does he love basketball that much? Does he not have a social life whatsoever? And he just wants to work all the time? I'm probably like you. I love doing this. I love yapping into a microphone and looking into a camera. It's a lot of fun. I love preparing for this. I love this whole thing. But if I had millions of dollars, I'd probably be, on a beach. This is kind of how it goes. But guys are different. So let me finish up the conversation about the NFL, and then we'll kind of move on. There's the thing on, by the way, there you go. Massive offer. Tom Brady allure has Raiders closing in on Ben Johnson. So I don't think Saleh is getting that job. And as I think about the Cowboys, and I've told you this numerous times, I would absolutely be incredibly shocked if Deion Sanders was the next head coach of the Cowboys. But it is Jerry Jones. But he just doesn't play nice with others, nor does Deion. Jason Witten makes sense because that's a guy that Jerry can control, and you're lucky to be here. That's what he does. He'll hire former players. Witten makes a lot more sense to me. So we'll get into that conversation as well. But ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, we are going to talk some Warriors, and we told you, and Danny Emerman was there last night. Danny does an amazing job of the Bay Area News Group. He was also with us at KNBR for a brief period of time, and he was incredibly nice to my son when he was covering the Giants, which was very, very cool. So Danny was there last night. We'll play some of the Steph Curry for you in a little bit, but Danny is with us, and let me pop him up here, and we'll get rolling. What's going on? How are you, man? It's good to see you. Oh, hold on. I got you on mute. There you go. You should be good now. Hang on 1 second. Hold on. We got you. Are you muted or am I muted? Hang on 1 second. We'll get Danny back on. Got to unmute his mic, and then we'll get him going, because I don't think I had him muted, but let me think. Let me get going here. All right. You there now? Oh, perfect, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm in the Dallas Fort Worth airport, connecting through American Airlines.
I won't keep you long, and I really appreciate you making the time to do this in an airport.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So anyway, Danny does a great job. Bay Area News Group has covered the Giants, was with us at KNBR. You came from Boston, right? You came over from Boston, right?
Yep, the Boston area.
How long you been in the Bay?
Since 2021. I joined KNBR like halfway through the magical 107 win season.
Well, first of all, like I said, whenever you got to go and your plane comes or whatever, you just let me know and you can jump. But one of the coolest things you did, you were covering the Giants that year, like you said, and I was kind of just taking my son around and just kind of showing him things as a junior at the Cronkite School at Arizona State. And, you know how it is. You're kind of wide-eyed. You're in a clubhouse for the first time. There's, it's kind of intimidating. There's all the beat writers. And you just said, hey, man, whatever you need, you just let me know. You're a young writer. You're a great writer. And it was really cool. And he said to this day, like, that guy, Danny, that, it just made him feel comfortable. So it was just really cool that you did that. Now he's actually writing for ASU football, ASU basketball. So he's kind of progressing through this thing, but it was really cool. I won't forget what you did that day. It was really nice.
Yeah. That's great to hear. He's doing well. In this industry, it's good to pay it forward. I think I've had a lot of people help me out. So I'm sure in 10, 15 years, your son is going to teach me something new about some new social media app or something.
I know, right? Jeez, it's incredible, dude. All right, so let's get into this thing because it's getting really interesting and it's confusing me because in one sense, a couple of weeks ago, Steph Curry told Malik Andrews, hey, we're trying to work on this thing. We're trying to get better. And then I start looking at this team over the last few years, and I know it's hard for fans to kind of get their head around the fact that if Steve Kerr is here and Draymond Green is here and Steph Curry is here, that they're still in that, that championship window. But you're looking over the last few years and they're 7 through 10. They're playing in playing games. And so now they're kind of going back and forth. And Steve said to you guys last night, we're still going for it. But then on the other side of it, Steph is saying, well, we got to watch how we leave this thing, and Draymond is saying we got to watch how they leave this thing. So with a few weeks until the trade deadline, what does this all mean? Because there's kind of mixed messages here.
Yeah, it's hard to keep sometimes for fans. It's hard to keep two things in your mind at one time, but I really do think it's possible to acknowledge that like two things are true at the same time, where like the Warriors are acknowledging that at this point in Steph Curry's career, it's like the twilight of his prime and the twilight of the dynasty they've built. So that's one. And the other thing is they want to get better, but they don't want to recklessly make desperate trades to sacrifice all their future first-round picks, all of their young talent in an effort that probably wouldn't work anyways to win a title this year. I think those two things can both be true at the same time, even though they are somewhat contradictory. So I think that's what the Warriors are working through now, and I think it's hard for fans to grapple with sometimes. I know they all want to make every trade, every superstar comes available. Why aren't they in on this? And I hear them, like sometimes I think that the Warriors should be reckless. I think they owe it to Steph to be reckless. But one thing that makes Steph really unique is that he's not going to pound down the doors of Mike Dunleavy's office, and he's not going to demand a trade. You've seen LeBron James do that at pretty much every team he's been at. Like how did the Shabazz Napier draft pick work in Miami? Right. Sometimes you don't want your best player to be the GM, and I think it could be reasonable criticism to say like Steph should do that more. He should be more demanding and put more pressure on the front office. But his approach has worked for a long time, and it has generally made the front office's life easier than the alternative would.
My first thought is that I understand, first of all, when they say it's our responsibility to leave it better than when we found it. Well, they were a $450 million franchise. Now they're a $9.1 billion franchise that's moved into Chase Center in San Francisco. So regardless, they're leaving the franchise in great shape. I guess my confusion comes where they say, well, we don't want to mortgage our future. Well, the only player to me right now that you would even be mortgaging at all would be Kuminga. And then first-round picks, I understand that. So you're going to give away picks. And there are teams in that position. There are lots of teams who just completely go for it, and then they're left with the rubble. But that's kind of the way sports works. You look at the post-Jordan Bulls. They still have never recovered. You look at the Celtics for years. They obviously Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum now, but they were a mess for years. I mean, go on down the line, and you can talk about any sport you want. The Giants after their World Series victories, like most every team that's not maybe the Dodgers or the Yankees, they go through these ups and downs. It's like throwing a ball in the air. It's got to come down at some point. There's gravity, and that's kind of sports gravity. So I understand what they're saying, but I feel like, and Steph is super nice, and I get that, and you bring up a great point that most stars just aren't that way. They just think themselves. They're selfish, and they think, get me help, get me help, get me help. Then you just run this thing into the ground. Isn't it kind of inevitable that this thing, once Steph leaves, that's the way it's going to go? Because with or without Jonathan Kuminga, they're going to be a lottery team, and probably for a while. That's just how it kind of works.
Yes and no. You see it both ways. Like, I think the idea of not wanting to mortgage the future is the idea that they don't want to be the Bulls. The Bulls have won 5 playoff series since Michael Jordan. Like, that's pretty unacceptable. You know, when I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but when the Jordan Bulls won 6 titles, I'm pretty sure they were the highest valued team in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And things change when you don't win anymore. So the Warriors don't want that. Steph Curry and Draymond, who feel like they have a stake in the organization, they don't want that either. They don't want what happened to the Lakers after Kobe retired, where they're pretty irrelevant for 5-10 years there until they get LeBron, I guess, in 2020. Right. What they want is probably something more similar, more akin to Dallas with Dirk. You know, he went out with like 3 or 4 500 teams or worse in a row. I think he might have won 1 playoff series in his last 4 or 5 seasons. But 2-3 years after he retires, they suddenly have Luka Doncic, and now they're back in the mix. They're in the finals again. So that's possible. You don't need to do a hard rebuild. But yeah, I generally think, like, if Steph is gone, you need to restart anyways. You know, when Steph leaves, Draymond's out, Steve's out, like, you kind of need to start from scratch regardless.
Yeah, I guess that's my point is that, look, I like Kuminga. It's nothing against Kuminga. I think he can be an all-star player. I don't know that he's going to be a Hall of Fame type, but he's incredibly young, so we don't know what he's going to be. It's more they don't want to find themselves in a position, as you said, where teams find themselves, where they go for it, and they can't rebuild because all their picks are gone. It's okay, Kuminga might be okay. They're going to the lottery with or without Kuminga, but it's all the first-round picks, and that way you can't trade. You're completely hamstrung. And all of a sudden, and this is, I think, a part of it is where you come from in Boston, they're going to go to the games. I mean, that's just how it is. I lived in Detroit and Pittsburgh. They'll go to the games. Here, you're an entertainment entity. So if you're not good, they're not going. Like, there's a lot of Warrior hardcore fans, and I understand that, but there's 41 games that you got to fill that place. And when Curry's gone, I don't think Kuminga's going to fill that void by himself. So I think you have to have a mindset when you live on the West Coast of, we're competing with wineries and the beach, and it's not just other sports entities. You're competing with a lot here. And if you're not worth the buck, people will buy season tickets and just not go. I mean, that's the kind of money's around here. Whereas in the East and in places like that, they'll go out there just to boo the team. Like around here, they just won't. They'll find other things to do. And I think that's part of this equation. I know the Giants get ripped for it. You know the Giants well. I question sometimes whether they want to turn turnstiles or win games. I don't doubt whether Joe Lacob wants to win games, but it's not like his businesses. It's really hard to maintain this and not have some sort of a dip along the way.
Yeah, it totally is. I mean, there might be a point at some point where down the line Joe has to decrease ticket prices.
Heaven forbid.
No, when the team's not contending for championships every year, you can't charge $250 to get in the building.
That's a great point, man.
That's something that the organization will have to deal with when the time comes. Maybe that's in the second half of this year. Like, who knows?
Right.
But you're right in the sense that if the team isn't going to be a winner, this isn't a market that's going to sell out, at least at that price point every night. And that's something that the Warriors are going to have to deal with for sure.
Danny Emerman is joining us right there. I just popped this up real quick. Make sure you're following Danny at Danny Emerman, Bay Area News Group. He is an awesome writer. Known him for a little bit. Worked at KMBR, was a Giants beat writer. And make sure that you're checking out his stuff. He is well worth the follow. Great writer. So what do they do between now and February 6th? What do you think they'll do? Because here's the thing is, I think you would agree with this. They were never going to go get Jimmy Butler. There's not a lot of guys out there, to me, that are going to move the needle. I think this is part of the quandary that they find themselves in. I don't doubt that Mike Dunleavy's trying, but if the normal names are out there, Brandon Ingram, I don't think they would take the risk on Zion, even though I think he has a ton of upside and he's only 24, but I don't see that happening for them. Certainly Kuminga and Wiggins, there'd be a lot of guys involved in that, so that would be different. LeBron has been brought up, but that doesn't seem like anything to me. So, I mean, what name is out there that would be realistic in your mind where they could say, okay, they could actually turn this around? Because I don't think they're one player away.
No, I don't think they're one player away either. There's probably no magic move that gets them into the championship conversation this year. Oklahoma City and Boston and Cleveland are just they're light years ahead of the Warriors right now, and that's okay. Like, the Warriors probably have to make an incremental move to get better, to make the games easier for Steph Curry. They need to get some more spacing, some more shooting, maybe a stretch five who could unlock a lot of different players on their team. If they had a stretch five, I think it would make Dennis Schroeder's life a lot easier. It would make Jonathan Kuminga's game a lot easier. It would be interesting to pair Draymond with a stretch five. He hasn't really had that in a long time, and it would probably take a lot of burden off of him defensively. So I would look at a bunch of stretch fives that might be available for, a lot of different capacities. It depends on what the price is. And again, that's not a championship win now move, but depending on the price, you probably don't have to give up too much to get some guy in your building, see what it looks like, see how everyone else on the team reacts to it. I think that could be valuable.
I'm looking. I had a thing out here as well. Oh, right here on these Warriors rumors. So again, I don't know what NBA Central knows, but the normal names are coming up there. You can see them there. Vucevic is out there. Collins, Valanciunas, Robert Williams. Do any of those names do anything for you? Any of those bigs?
To varying degrees.
Make them, yeah, right. And they're all different kind of players. I mean, you have a stretch in there. You have a guy like Robert Williams who's hurt a lot, but we saw in the finals a couple years ago can be a really good defender.
He's starting to shoot threes too, which is somewhat interesting.
I like him.
I'd probably rather have him around the basket.
Yeah. So like if they got one of Vucevic is the guy that everybody keeps talking about from the Bulls, but again, there's a $20 million guy, and it's not like you're getting him for free, so you got to give something up to get him. I don't know what you're giving up to get him, but
no, and similar with Zach LaVine, Vucevic's teammate, the price would have been much lower before the season, and there's no way the Warriors could have known that both of them would have played really well this year. Like, they both have had really awesome bounce back years. Their prices might have been, negative in the offseason. I think the Bulls probably would have had to attach a first round pick to Zach LaVine. Now he might cost a first round pick or two plus all the salary, and the Warriors and a lot of teams probably don't want to do that. So it's hard where you want to be proactive, and the Warriors tried to be proactive with the Lauri Markkanen and the Paul George deals. They, for whatever reason, valid or not, weren't really interested in Zach LaVine, and now the price has gone up, as the Wire says.
Yeah.
So in terms of trades this deadline, I do think they're going to make at least one. I don't think it's going to be a huge splash. I would be interested to hear what they think internally about Zion, for sure. I think that's the type of Hail Mary move that would make sense. Just in terms of upside, I don't think the price would be too high. He's had a lot of off-the-court issues. He's had, obviously, issues staying on the court. His contract is one of the best contracts in the league.
Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting wrinkles into that. So I think the price is probably moderate to mild. I'm not sure the New Orleans Pelicans would sell this low on him. So I don't know how available he'd be, but I would be interested to hear what people around the team have to think about him.
Well, you know what's interesting about him, and I have definitely championed his cause. He's only 24. He's got massive upside. And I have this thought, maybe I'm completely wrong because I don't know him, but that when you get with a good organization, then, I don't know what he's playing at, 285, 290. Maybe he's going to be 265 because the athleticism is great. But if he could expand his game out to the three-point line, he can get to the rim anytime he wants. He could, if he was properly motivated and in shape, which is a big if, and I think some of his health issues I don't think he wants to be in New Orleans, but I could be wrong. But, I mean, he's a guy who could lead the league in scoring. He could be a double-digit rebounder, and he's only 24 years old. So, like you said, if you want to go Hail Mary and you're that desperate, and I think New Orleans has got to be pretty sick of him. But, again, it comes down to what do you got to give up? Are you giving up Wiggins? Are you giving up Kuminga? Does he have more upside than Kuminga? Probably, but he hasn't been healthy. So, like you said, there's all those names that we hear. Zion is probably the most intriguing, but because he could be a guy who could bridge the gap now and potentially be a number one player later if properly motivated. Big if.
Yeah. I'm not reporting this. This is purely hypothetical, but in a Zion trade, I think they'd probably have to send Draymond out.
Ooh,
they play the same position.
Good point.
And I don't really think they could play together. But
Yeah,
I don't know
right.
if the Warriors would be willing to do that. I don't know if that's the case, but I think that's probably what would have to happen. And maybe he'd go to a third team, and it would be a very complicated deal.
Wow, that's interesting. And then, so what, and again, we're just talking here. We're not reporting anything, but then Steph's reaction would be, because that's his, right? The Batman and Robin thing.
Probably a non-starter.
Yeah, probably not, like right away, right? That's interesting.
Probably.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. How's everything else? Everything good? You're digging this, everything, and sitting in airports and hitting layovers and all that kind of stuff? You're liking it?
Sometimes I wish I could have some more direct flights, but that's all right.
That's cool, man. How long have you been? How long have you been on this beat? Because I know you're doing the Giants for a while. Is this your first year?
Yeah,
on the beat?
I started last February.
Nice.
I took over for Shayna Rubin, who moved to the Chronicle.
Right. Yeah, she does a good job. Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, very cool, man. Hey, thanks for taking the time. I know that in the middle of an airport, it's not ideal, but it was awesome. It was awesome talking to you. And again, I want to pop that up there. Make sure that everybody's following. Danny Emerman has done a great job. You're a great writer. And like I said, I appreciate you're telling my kid, like, hey, man, I got you here. You need some help. That was cool.
John.
Maybe best known for, and I was standing right there going, Gabe Kapler pulled that crap on you where it's like, look, it's not my job to answer the question, but you did, man. It's like, well done by you, young reporter.
Might have been the most overblown.
No, I know, was it?
Ever experienced.
No, but a lot of guys, having done this for about 25 years, a lot of guys would freeze in that moment, and you didn't, because you knew what you were talking about, and you were prepared, and you weren't just standing there. It was cool. It was impressive for me to see from a young reporter, because a lot of guys would have just froze, and that's what he was expecting you to do, and you didn't. So I thought it was really cool. So
I remember in college, Jim Boeheim pulled that on one of my colleagues at the student paper. Said something like, "What do you know? Like you're 5'6". Like he called out his height or something.
Wow, like that matters, right?
Insane. Like Jim could be nasty.
Yeah.
Gabe wasn't coming from any place like that. So I had experienced something similar, at least through proxy, and I wrote about that instance for the paper at the time and how Jim was being unprofessional. And I didn't think Gabe was being unprofessional at all in that moment. I don't know. I can't believe we're still talking about it 3 years later.
I know, right? It just popped into my head because I like I said, it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just I've seen similar things. I had a similar incident like you're talking about in college. It was with Bobby Knight, same kind of a thing. But you got to be prepared because you don't know what some guys are going to say. But it was very cool to see. So great stuff. Great work on the Warriors. And thank you for taking the time in an airport, man. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, John.
Take care of yourself. I'll talk to you soon. There you go. There's Danny Emerman. Very cool that Danny would join us. Really good insight. How about that? Where he talked about, and I still got Matt Maiocco up in the corner. I got to take that down. Talked about would have to be a Draymond Green kind of thing, and that probably is a deal breaker. But that's interesting. I don't know that people would do that because my thought was, because like Steph Curry is going to tell you in just a second, we're going to play some of those cuts that we promised you. Like Steph Curry was saying, all these people playing with the trade machine and everything. The trade machine that I've always played with is, even though Kuminga's not making a ton of money, you got guys like Andrew Wiggins. And so for Zion, Wiggins is having a really nice season. Seems like his head is cleared from all the personal stuff that he's had over the last couple of years with his father's illness and ultimately his death. His father used to play in the NBA, Mitchell Wiggins. I'm sure you know that. And it just seems like he's playing much better and clearly. And last night, he was very, very good. In fact, before we get to all the cuts, let me pop up last night's box score. There you go. So Wiggins last night, again, 24 and 6 of 16. 10 of 12 from the line for a team that doesn't get to the line, not a couple of assists, 5 boards, but there you go, 24. And then Steph Curry doing Steph Curry things. Steve Kerr did say after the game that he wants to cut those minutes, but this has been like the screaming crowd forever. Play Curry some more minutes. And last night, I don't know, it was weird. It seemed like a big game, even though probably won't look back at this game and say that it meant a whole lot. Steph goes 10 of 21, 7 of 12 from 3, 31 points. That's what Steph does. So 116, 115, and they are now 20 and 20 on the season. So let's get into this whole conversation. I'd love to get your thoughts. Let me pop the comments back up. I was messing with a bunch of stuff when Danny was up there. So we've gone over the very cool day today. So we've had Matt Maiocco, then followed by Danny Emerman. So we hit up a lot of the things that we're going to talk about here today. If you have any thoughts, questions, comments on some of the things Danny said or Maiocco, because we kind of jumped from one to the other, and everybody is in here today. Smiley Dan, I don't think you've seen you. Yeah, Danny's a really good guy, Smiley Dan. I'm glad that you just started following him on Twitter. Really, really good guy, really talented young rider. I'm not sure how old he is, but he came from Boston, was working with us on KMBR, kind of covering everything. And then he got a great gig covering the Giants for the Bay Area News Group, and now this is his first full year on the beat for the Warriors. So he's doing a really nice job. You should follow him. He's very, very good. So, okay, let's get into this conversation here as I'm looking over the comments. Let's see. Yeah. Hey, thanks. Thanks, EB here. I appreciate it, man. Great show. I like the way they keep things moving. Very entertaining. You ever thought of doing this for a living? Broadcasting, I mean. Yeah, I've thought about doing that time or two. Let's get going. By the way, if I like to welcome new people to the show because lots of people are listening and watching on X, on Instagram. Also, we'd love it if you join the YouTube channel. That would be tremendous. All you got to do is hop over to YouTube at John Lund Unleashed Pod, at John Lund Unleashed Pod. And if you subscribe there, that would be outstanding. Make sure you give us a like, tell all your friends and enemies. That would be tremendous. We are here 8 a.m. Pacific time every weekday, and then select afternoons or whatever when news breaks. So we pop right on here. So make sure your alerts are on, and then you won't miss anything. And so that's what we got going on the YouTube channel. And then if you want to hit up on the socials, and one more day, as I said, and then we'll play some of the stuff with you that I've been promising you for about an hour, but these guests keep popping on, which is very cool. But then we'll get into some of this Steph Curry stuff, but make sure that you're following, make sure you're liking. We have a podcast as well if you miss it. So there's no excuse. Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your favorite podcast. And this will be the last day as I'm kind of rolling out the soft launch of this thing, but I got a few more things. So a guy built this website for me, and then he showed me how to use it. And now I'm going in there and screwing everything up. And now we got to fix some things. But then by tomorrow, this thing will be released. And that'll have all the podcasts, all the video stuff, all the cut-ups, all the clips in one place. And not only that, I'll have blogs and so forth. So I already wrote a blog yesterday, blog. I already wrote a blog yesterday on Buster Posey potentially being done for the offseason and what that means for the Giants. So that's all up there. So it's johnlundunleashed.com. You can check it out. It's not completely done. I'm working on a few things, but it's about 85% done, I would say. So it's up there. It's good enough to be dangerous, but I do have some stuff that I want to continue to work on. So it's not completely done, but I'll just give you a little heads up on that. So that's what's going on as far as everything is concerned. We love to get questions, comments, and thoughts. There is a chat line going on right now. In fact, I need to check the Instagram chat line as well, because that is up and going. And then let me just check one thing real quick, and then I promise we'll get to this stuff. And I keep saying that I will, and you're like, dude, get to something. Will you please get to something? So let me make sure that that's up and going. And yeah, and I can see stuff in the chat room there, because lots of people like to do that too. So we got everything going up at the same time. All right, let's get to this stuff. All right, let's get to this stuff as I just hit up on. There we go. Now we're back. All right, let's get to this stuff. We told you about Steph Curry and kind of the confusing messages that are coming out of Warriors camp. And we talked to Danny Emerman about it just a second ago. But let me go back to a couple of days ago first, and then we'll update you on Steph. So this is kind of what started it. And then I'm going to play a cut from Steph last night because he seems to be kind of frustrated. Actually, a couple of cuts, and then Steve Kerr as well. And then something from Brian Windhorst that I thought was interesting today on ESPN. So this is kind of the backdrop of everything over the last couple of days that's been discussed regarding the Warriors. Here's Steph Curry after the Toronto loss, 9-31 Toronto, who, by the way, beat Boston last night. So here is Steph Curry after the Toronto loss a couple of nights ago.
Doesn't mean that you're not trying to get better. Doesn't mean that you're not active in any type of search to if you have an opportunity where a trade makes sense, or even in the summer free agency makes sense, like, you want to continue to get better. Nobody wants to be stale or be in a situation where you're passing up opportunities, but it doesn't mean that you're desperate, just flinging assets all around the place just because you want to do something. So there's Mike understands, like, we want to win. We want to be in that position where, we've always said that you want to be relevant in the championship type of chase, while we understand we're getting older and deeper into our careers, and allowing some of the young guys to kind of blossom. but it doesn't mean you're getting desperate. So it's better to kind of be patient and understand what that looks like. And I know, Mike is always on the phone trying to figure it out. That's what a good GM does. Doesn't mean there's a deal on the table. Doesn't mean that you're desperate. Doesn't mean that you're just flinging, like I said, assets all the way around and being reckless with it.
Are you comfortable with, with the activity level 3 weeks out for them?
If there was a situation that made sense for our team, I'm pretty sure we know about it. It's how we've always operated. That's the expectation now.
All right, so there's Steph Curry the other night after the loss. And so he's talking about assets, and he wants to leave it in a better place, and they can't, they got to worry about the future. I'm going to play something from Ryan Windhurst in a minute, but it's exactly what I was thinking, which is you've never hear a superstar say that. And you heard Danny Emerman say this a minute ago, too, when he joined the show from an airport, I think in Dallas, as he was at the game last night in Minnesota covering the Warriors for the Bay Area News Group. Jonathan Kuminga is an asset. First-round picks are assets. You see teams all the time, and I think this comes from Joe Lacob probably. And there is an element of turning turnstiles and when Steph leaves and all those kind of things. But to me, it's inevitable. You throw a ball up in the air, it comes down. Sports is like gravity in that way. The Celtics of Larry Bird's era, they have had to go through it. Now they're back, but it was a number of years. Jordan's Bulls have never recovered. The Spurs, now they got a reprieve when Kawhi Leonard joined the team, and that extended their window, but he's obviously long gone, as well as is Tim Duncan and David Robinson and Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili, and now they have Wemby, and they might be on the ascend, but that's what it takes. It takes that generational player, whatever the case, or make a great move or whatever, in order to do that. So I don't care what team you're talking about. The Patriots are in their second coach in 2 years. Tom Brady left. Even Bill Belichick couldn't save it. It's inevitable. There are certain teams in certain sports, if there are rules, like the Dodgers never really have to be bad because they'll buy their way out of it. Now, that doesn't always work because Steve Cohen's the richest owner in baseball, and the Mets aren't that great. Now, they just signed Juan Soto. Maybe that works. Maybe it doesn't. But in baseball, because there are penalties in baseball, but they're not nearly as prohibitive of, say, what the NBA is. In the NFL, there's a salary cap. In salary cap leagues like you have in the NFL and you have in the NBA, it's designed for parity. And there'll be teams that for a period of time will be absolutely great. That's what's frustrating about, say, the 49ers. It's not going to last forever. It just can't. Players get older. You don't always draft well. What teams do, what you'll see teams do when they win for a long period of time, when Seattle was in theirs, when the Niners were in their window, when the Patriots were in theirs, now that the Lions are in theirs, go back and look at all these draft picks. The Rams, that's why the Rams are getting scary, is because we know this. It's not just the first round, it's all the rounds. So the 49ers have built this thing. They've gotten key free agents here and there, but they've also had disappointments. D Ford was a disappointment. Hargrave was a disappointment. Just because you spend money does not mean you're going to be great. Most of the 49ers' success can be traced back to the draft, and that's how the NFL works. So you look at like the Lions' last 2 or 3 drafts have been tremendous. The 49ers, when they were kicking ass and they built what they've got right now, it was drafts. Well, losing, trying to get Trey Lance to solve the quarterback position. You look at those drafts. In 22, it was Brock Purdy and nothing else. In 23, it was basically nothing. This year it looks like that's a positive draft. Maybe they'll start going in the right direction. But you can trace it in the NFL a lot of times, not to free agency, because that's a desperation. And I've told you this before. What is free agency about a lot of times? It's about a player who's flawed. They're either too old, too expensive, too hurt, and so they make it out to the market. And there are certain players who, you can sign in free agency, and you're like, wow, how did that team let them go? Now, maybe that team was under salary cap restraints, whatever the case, but that's what I'm saying is it's such a difficult chess game in those sports. Baseball's different. The Dodgers don't care about the penalties that baseball may throw on them because it's not really that much. Same with the Mets and the Yankees. And so you can, to a certain extent, buy your way out of issues in baseball. And there are certain teams like the Yankees and Dodgers that everybody wants to go to. We have this debate about whether anybody wants to come to the Giants. So there are rare exceptions to the rule. But let me go back to what Steph Curry said right there. He's essentially saying something that no superstar ever says. I'm worried about it when I leave. Now, should he be? That's something that you and I can debate. I don't think he should be. I think Steph Curry should be selfish. Michael Jordan took the most money at the end. Kobe Bryant took the most money at the end and got criticized for it. LeBron James has taken the most money. I mean, all of us sit here from our perches and say, why doesn't that guy just take less money? I mean, Brady did it to a certain extent, but he knew he was making so much money off the field that it really didn't matter to him. And he knew at that point his legacy and the legacy of a quarterback is, how much do you win? I've never, ever, ever heard anybody say, man, you know how much money that guy made in his career in terms of what it meant to their legacy. Now, it happens all the time in just conversation. Is this guy worth it? Is that guy worth it? I don't really care. I don't pay the bills, but I pay my own, but not those. But that's not the discussion point when somebody is, are you the greatest? When you get up to that level, that very rare 1% error where it's just about titles and how well you did in those situations. Then those guys say to themselves, it's fine. But you just don't hear it. You don't see it. Like Steph's worried about how he's leaving the team. Well, they bought him for $450 million and they were in Oakland, and now they're worth $1.9 billion, the most in basketball, and they've got a shiny arena in San Francisco. So that's the legacy he can leave, and no one's going to forget what he did. And that period of time that the Warriors are inevitably going to have, with or without Jonathan Kuminga, with or without Brandon Podziemski, with or without the first-round picks, to me, this is really simple. And I appreciate what Steph is trying to do here. But to me, it's very simple. You do owe Steph. This is an old conversation, but you do owe Steph everything if you're Joe Lacob. I don't even know why there's a debate. Like, if I'm Joe Lacob, and he's the one who calls the shots, I know we keep hearing Mike Dunleavy. Well, Mike's going to do this. Mike's not going to do this. Mike's going to do that. It's not Mike's choice. It's not Mike Dunleavy's choice. So one of the reasons Bob Myers left. He's a hovering owner, and that's putting it nicely. He's in on everything. There's not a minor trade or a minor move. Hey, Bob, did Mike do this? No, Joe Lacob did it. And I know there's a number of guys whose opinion matters, but at the end of the day, everybody looks at Joe and says, what do you think, Joe? And Joe Lacob says yay or nay. That's just how it is. So if I'm the final decision maker of the Golden State Warriors, I'm Joe Lacob. I'm Joey Lightyears. We're doing everything we can to maximize Steph Curry, because I'm going to let you in on a little secret here. Don't tell anyone. There's never going to be another Steph Curry. Never, 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 never. Never going to be another Steph Curry. So why wouldn't you just say, we're just going all in on Steph Curry. We're running this thing literally into the ground. That's it. Like, in college, I had a car in college. It was a Ford Fairmont. Not kidding you. It was like green. I got a great story on it. I haven't told any stories today. It was a Ford Fairmont. What happened one day with the Ford Fairmont was we had something called National Tequila Days in college. I swear I'll get back to the Warriors. But we had a thing called National Tequila Days in college. And I'm not kidding you. I was in a fraternity, and we would be doing, as weird as this sounds. So in the fraternity, there was 3 floors in the fraternity. But on the middle floor and the bottom floor, there were showers, and they were like 8-man showers, right? So you rarely, it was like being in a gym. You rarely had a shower to yourself. So on National Tequila Days, you were in this like 6-8-man shower on Saturday morning. The game, we lived right by the football stadium, and we would start drinking in the shower. We were just passing a tequila bottle around in the shower. There wasn't no salt or lime or anything. You're just passing the tequila bottle around in the shower. National Tequila Days. I mean, it was crazy. I forgot where I was going with that story, but we were talking about National Tequila Days. But point is, as far as the Warriors are concerned, if I'm Joe Lacob, there's no other option to me, because there's not going to be another Steph Curry. So whether I'm in the lottery with Jonathan Kuminga, whether I have first-round picks, it's just inevitable that's what's going to happen. So I appreciate the fact that Steph Curry is the rare superstar who wonders what the team is going to be like after he leaves. But the way that I would think about it if I was Lacob is, I know what I was talking about, the Ford Fairmont. Let me go back. So I don't want you to miss this story. So Ford Fairmont, National Tequila Days. What I'm saying is you run it into the ground. So I knew when I got this car that I was running this thing into the ground. And maybe I'll look up a Ford Fairmont, just an ugly, terrible car. I would pull up to, dates' houses, and they would just be like, what are you talking about? Let me see if I can find a green Ford Fairmont, because it was green. And my parents were just like, this is what you're getting, because I know that you're irresponsible, and we're getting you this Ford Fairmont. So anyway, the way that it relates to National Tequila Days is, we do the tequila and everything. We're getting ready to go to the game, and we could walk to the game, but I had to get something out of my car, and somebody I don't know who it was, somebody who may not have liked me, had put a hose in my car and it had plastic seats and all this kind of stuff. And it was running with water like through the thing. And so I opened the door and water splashes everywhere and everybody's cracking up. And it's college, whatever. The car was probably worth, I don't know, $1,000 at the most. So anyway, there wasn't any damage. It was kind of a joke. It was like a fraternity joke, whatever like that. So the point is, I ran that Ford Fairmont into the ground. That was, I stayed with it. I got back to this. So I ran that thing into the ground. So to me, this version of the Warriors is that Ford Fairmont. I mean, the Spurs ran it into the ground. The Bulls could have. The Bulls didn't really run into the ground. They told Jordan his services were no longer required, which is weird. The Giants ran it into the ground 10, 12, 14. Just go on down the line. When you have unique players like this, and there may not be another player who's more unique than what Steph Curry is, that's what you do, because you're not going to get another one. So if the premise of it is that now we're going to do, again, it comes back to that whole 2 timeline thing. Who wins with that? We've got the young players, the older players. Wiseman's gone. Kuminga's going to be good, not great. You're not giving Moody enough opportunities. Podziemski's a role player. So what exactly are you losing? Who exactly are you mortgaging? Andrew Wiggins? I mean, Andrew Wiggins was with Cleveland, Minnesota, and now here. He's a really solid player. He's having an amazing season. He's an all-star-ish kind of a player. I mean, I don't know that he would make the all-star team. He did 1 year. But, he's kind of on the verge of that. So it's not like if you traded Andrew Wiggins, who I really like, and I respect that he's gotten through all those personal problems, but if you traded Andrew Wiggins, could you find another Andrew Wiggins down the line? Yes, you could. Kuminga, because of his freakish athleticism, he's a unique type. I understand the hesitancy to not move Jonathan Kuminga, although I don't think, let's say, when Green's gone and you have Kuminga, is he going to be a number 1 type player that's going to be the face of a franchise kind of a guy? Not from what I've seen. I think he could be an all-star player, but I don't think he's a number 1 face of the franchise. And not only to win championships, not only do you need one of those guys, you kind of need 3, right? You need a true Batman. You need a Robin, and then I don't know what the third guy's called. Batman, Robin, and then you need a third. I mean, that's normally how championships work. You have a big 3. Now, Boston has Tatum, Brown, but they have a bunch of guys around them are really solid players. I mean, Drew Holiday comes aboard, right? So whatever 3 you want to call it, you definitely need a big 2. So with Kuminga, I'd call him at best a 2, not in position, just in terms of there's got to be a player above him, just like Steph Curry is a clear 1. LeBron's a clear 1. I mean, go on down the line. Tatum and Brown are definitely a 1 and 2. So you need that guy anyway. And even if you have a superstar player, like Victor Wembanyama is really making big strides. But last year, San Antonio's still in the lottery. I mean, one really, really superstar player, you're still going to be in the lottery most times. Now, unless it's like LeBron and he carried teams, but you're going to still be in the lottery. So let's continue with this because I got on a bit of a rant there. So you heard Steph from a couple of nights ago. Then after last night's win against Minnesota, here's Steph on ESPN. And you rarely see Steph agitated or Steph reacting to media. And he's not mad with the guys asking the questions on ESPN. He knows of this. How the hell could Steph not say run it into the ground? So here's what Steph said.
That 24-hour media or news cycle is hilarious at times. The fact that nobody's complacent here, nobody is okay with just being average. All the Twitter fingers who's got deals that we need to make can kind of just shut up a little bit and let us figure this thing out. Like we know we can be competitive. We showed that toughness tonight. Obviously, every team is trying to find ways to get better, and for us. We've been great for a very long time. This is just a unique year where we have to be able to stay relevant and give ourselves a chance and just have some life in a playoff series. And we have a whole lot of confidence that we can, beat anybody. So, yeah.
I love Steph, and he should have the opinion that he had right there. He's just basically, hey, they won a game, they're 20-20, and so he said, Twitter fingers can shut up, and I get it. There's a lot of people, and I'm fond of a term, and I say it all the time. It's not a democracy. Steph doesn't really have to be worried about those kind of things, but essentially what he said was that this year's a one-off, and it's not a one-off. We said this the other day, and you know this. I'm not breaking any news here. This is who they are now. They're not top of the Western Conference. They're not a title contender. So while we look at Steph Curry, and as long as Steph Curry, and I'm going to play a cut from last night in the locker room with Steph, and he makes a very interesting point, which is, and you and I have talked about this, as long as he's around, as long as Draymond's around, as long as Steve Kerr's around, they're going to be seen as the Warriors, as a championship team. The reason why they struggle some nights, they can't sneak up on anybody. They can't. Oh, Steph Curry's in the building. It's a litmus test for everybody, even though they're not the old Warriors. You know, they used to walk into buildings and everybody's like, let's see what we got. They still do that. You know, Steph Curry's still on that team. Draymond Green is still talking trash. That's still Steve Kerr on the sidelines. That's still the Warriors uniform. Remember all those times they embarrassed us? Remember all those times that Steph Curry danced on the court? It's payback time. So one of the reasons why they are where they are is because, A, they're not as good as they used to be. Breaking news. They aren't as good as they used to be, but also it's because nobody ever takes them lightly ever. Like last night, Boston lost to Toronto. If they played 99 more times, Boston would beat Toronto 99 out of 100. But last night, Boston went, it's Toronto. They suck. They're 9-31. And they just fell asleep at the switch. The Warriors never get that because of Steph Curry. So that's one thing Steph said. And then let me play one thing from Brian Windhorst. I'm going to play another Steph Curry cut for you. But this is Windhorst talking about how unique Steph is in this whole situation about wanting to worry about how he leaves the Warriors.
Saying there is the Warriors shouldn't go all in just because I'm turning 37 in March, just because we started 12-3. We shouldn't take our young players and our first round draft picks and go get a star player now. That's what the Warriors basically were trying to do all last summer and fall. And in theory, we're still trying to do during this season. He was basically saying, I'm not quitting, but if the front office wants to punt, I get it. He even wants to so far as to say, and I don't think I've ever heard this from a star player. We got to worry about where the franchise is after we're gone. This is like the anti-LeBron. LeBron is the guy.
All right, I'm not. I agree with LeBron. I'm sorry to say this. I agree with LeBron. When you get another LeBron James, you're not. When you get another Steph Curry, you're not. I'm going to go back to Joe Lacob here. If I'm Joe Lacob, is it more important to keep Jonathan Kuminga as a building block for the future? Or is it more important to think, you know what, maybe we could catch lightning in a bottle like 2022? Do I think they're going to? No. Oklahoma City is really good. Houston looks really good. Denver's up there. Boston's over in the East. Cleveland is absolutely great. Did I mention Oklahoma City and Cleveland are playing tonight? Those teams are much better. But still in the back of my mind, and maybe I'm 100% on crack here. You can tell me. I wouldn't want to see the Warriors in a series. Now, I've been saying that for years, and then they get knocked out in a play-in game. Miami did make it to an NBA Finals from the play-in game. Do I think this team can make it to an NBA Finals from the play-in game? I do not. I don't see them going anywhere in the playoffs. But just for the sake of our fun conversation right here, if they could somehow get a motivated Zion, now I think it would take an entire year for Zion to be in the Warriors system, for Zion to get in shape, all those kind of things. But I keep bringing him up, and I know it's a crazy thought. He misses a ton of games. He's out of shape, but he's still 24 years old, has ridiculous athleticism. I think if he played at 265 instead of 285, he could lead the league in scoring, be a double-digit rebounder, and bridge the gap now to later. That's the only guy I see out there that could be that kind of a big swing. And if I'm the Warriors, that's what I do, because if he doesn't work, he's still 24 and pretty good. Now, the injuries and all that kind of stuff, but if you had Zion and he was injured, then you're just going to the lottery anyway. So I like Kuminga. I've said this a million times. I don't dislike Kuminga. I think he's going to be an all-star, not a number one player. I think he's going to be a fine player. But am I worried about these assets that they keep talking about? What, Podziemski? Wiggins? Those are guys that get traded. Those are the type of guys that get traded. If they had a bunch of young assets, Oklahoma City has all these young assets. Here's a perfect example. Oklahoma City's won. I don't know if it's perfect because I came up with it, but we'll try. Oklahoma City hasn't won anything. They have a bunch of young players, and they're being patient, and they're trying to get there. Now, they're probably another player away, but they've got assets. They've got tons of first-round picks, the most in the league over the last next years. They've got a lot of nice young players, so they should just let this thing continue to marinate. It's kind of like, remember back when the Warriors were just starting this thing, and it was Harrison Barnes, and it was Steph Curry and Draymond Green and Klay Thompson. They were all young, and there was a rumor that the Warriors are going to trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love. And Jerry West said, look, if you trade Klay Thompson, reportedly said this, if you trade Klay Thompson for Kevin Love, I'll quit. I'm out. You got to keep him. That's mortgaging your future. Trading a young Klay Thompson when you haven't won any championships, and all you have to do, I mean, I'm making it sound much simpler than it is. All you have to do is wait and be patient, which is the opposite of what any owner who really wants to win does in sports. So they do a panic move. Let's get this guy. He's a good name. And then that guy, it's the end of his career. And then all of a sudden you have egg on your face. And that guy, the guy that you traded, turns into a superstar. We see less and less of that actually today because everyone's so worried about what social media is going to think. Oh my God, I'm going to get barbecued on X or Twitter or Instagram or wherever forever. We can't make this move. They're just way too worried about that. But the name of the game is to win a championship, not to turn turnstiles for 10 years and make sure that you don't make a mistake. That's what too many GMs do. You're supposed to win a championship. And once you win that championship, whatever happens, happens. You won. If anybody ever comes back to you and says, but you traded that guy, we won. We won the championship. That's all you see this big fat ring. I don't have one. Oh, you know what? Maybe I do. Look at this. I got a replica. Man, I'm glad I thought of this. Wham! Look at that. Ow! There you go. That's a ring. So what I say is, oh, really? You're pissed that I traded that guy? Blammo. Look at that. That's a ring. You want to see it closer? Punch you right in the face. See, there you go. See? Maybe like that. There you go. How about that? Does that look better? Ring. All right. So that's what you do. You just put the ring right in their face and go, yeah, I traded, but you know what? There's my replica. But that would normally have like lots of diamonds on it and stuff like that. So you just throw the ring right in their face. Right in their face and go, so I traded that guy. I don't care. What do you care? I got a championship. I got a ring. So that's what matters. You know? So I'm going to do everything I can. And when I go to the lottery, I go to the lottery. That's the natural cycle of sports. The natural cycle of sports is hopefully I win a championship. I'm at the top. You know, I try to hang on for a little while, but it goes, like I said, it's like a ball. You threw it up in the air and it lasted 10 years. And all of a sudden here it comes. Gravity's pulling it down and you got to start over. This is how it is. And it's tough for guys like Joe Lacob who are like, no, I always have success. I can keep my businesses always going like this. Sports doesn't work that way, especially when the NBA rules are, we're going to penalize and penalize. We want parity, even though they shouldn't want parity, because actually ratings are best when there's a dominant team. Jordan's Bulls through the roof ratings. Steph Curry and the Warriors through the roof ratings. People want to watch the dominant team. That's what ratings are about. The Patriots, when there's a dominant team in a particular sport, we think we all want parity. We don't. We want to go watch the superstar teams like Mahomes, the Chiefs. I know that's a bad subject. That's what people want. By the way, supers and stickers, if you want to get your chats on the air, absolutely 100%. There's our good friend Daniel. He says, it's over. The Warriors are washed. Light the beam. Oh, he's a Kings fan. I know that. It's over. Look, I said this the other day, and we actually had a cover to the show that said that too. It's over. Yeah, I do think it's over, especially the way that they're talking, because they're like, it just sounds a lot like that we thought this was over. Like James Wiseman, Moody, Kuminga, all these young players that they had, and like, we're gonna do it this way. We're gonna do this two timeline. How many times have we figured out it didn't work? I thought we were over the whole 2 timeline conversation, but here we are again. Can't trade our assets, can't trade ones, can't trade. Well, then this is what it's going to be. I don't disagree with you, Daniel. And yeah, the Kings have been hot. My God, I thought Doug Christie, come on, Doug Christie. He's not better than Mike Brown. And I'm not saying he is, but something happened. Like something happened in that locker room where they were just like, man, we better get going. Mike Brown just got fired. So yeah, thank you, Daniel. Much appreciated. You can hit us up as well with those. And also, we're putting together, just since Daniel brought that up, we are putting together the Lund Loyalist program, and I will make it worth your while. So we're doing that as well. You can check that out on YouTube when you subscribe or like. So let me play. So then this is Steph last night post-game. This is really interesting as well. So we played a couple of things. Here's Steph post-game. He didn't realize that his comments that I played for you a few minutes ago the other night after the loss to Toronto would get the legs that they've gotten. This is courtesy of Anthony Slater, who does a great job at The Athletic covering the Warriors.
Championship expectations. Everything's going to get micro-analyzed. And obviously what I'm talking about, Draymond was talking about Steve was talking about, you forget the part where we're talking about we're always trying to get better. Like, what does that actually mean? So it's obviously not our job to worry about that on a daily basis. And these 3 weeks before the trade deadline, like, our job is to win as many games as possible. And thankfully we got one tonight.
Steve mentioned he felt like, the narrative had become that you guys were, basically waving the white flag. Were you surprised that that's how it was taken? And I guess, is there any clarification you want to give on, that aspect?
Anybody who thinks that I'm okay with just being an average basketball team is insane.
All right, that's the money line right there. Anyone now? Here's where there's a contradiction here. So the other night, both Draymond and Steph, and I played that for you. Both Draymond and Steph said, "Hey, we're not going to run this thing in the ground. We're not going to mortgage the future." But then Steph said last night, and I love Steph, but Steph said last night, anybody who thinks that I'm okay being on an average basketball team is insane. They're an average basketball team. If you look at the standings right now, they're 20-20. They're 500 on the road. They're 500 at home. They're 500 in the standings. They are the dictionary definition of an average basketball team. So on one side, and I'll play Steve Kerr for you in just a second. In one side, they're saying we're not going to mortgage the future. In the other side, they're saying, but I'm not content being on an average basketball team. So which is it? Because right now, if you make no moves, you're an average basketball team. And even if you make a move for, just whoever it is, throw me a name out there. We've talked about it a million times, ad nauseum. And I don't want to even bring it up again because it's like, Ingram and Zion and Vucevic and, any of these guys. Now Robert Williams of the Blazers, who I really like. His name's coming out there. Maybe they need to stretch 5. That could be it. But does any name that you've heard through the rumor mill make you go, you know what? If they got player X, this is a championship contender. I haven't heard that name. I laughed the other day and we were talking about LeBron James. If one of those guys just got sick and tired of it and just said, look, because I do think it's funny in the Western Conference that the Suns old guy team with Durant and the Warriors old guy team with Curry and the Lakers old guy team with LeBron, like if somehow the NBA could say, look, you know what we really want is massive ratings. So let's figure out a way to get those 3 guys on a team. We don't even care who's around them. It could be a bunch of minimum guys, but the 3 old guys being on 3 separate teams and basically doing the same things, kind of dwindling around and screwing around in the 7 through 10 spot and then having them out after, the first play-in tournament, or maybe one of them survives and then gets the hell knocked out of them by the 1 seed or the 2 seed. Now all of a sudden, LeBron, Kevin Durant, and Steph Curry are out of the playoffs. And that's the way it looks like it's going to happen this year. A couple of those teams will be in the play-in. One will probably be near the bottom, and all 3 will be out by the end of the first round. No Suns, no Lakers, no Warriors, no Durant, no Curry, no LeBron. The NBA doesn't like that. It's like, wow. It's just crazy. Anyway, we'll see. Also, part of that, too, is do you take it like I took it when he says at the end, anybody who thinks I'm okay being on an average basketball team is insane. So are you saying, again, there's a contradiction in terms. Don't want to mortgage the future, don't want to be on an average basketball team. Well, if the Warriors say they're not going to mortgage their future, then they're going to be an average basketball team. If you're insane, if I think that you want to be on an average basketball team, then are you somehow, I know maybe this is a stretch, are you asking for a trade? Are you saying that if we are still an average basketball team, that I do want to go with the super old man team and go with Durant and go with LeBron? And I don't know, we're gonna have that team, but maybe we're going to make a super old man team. Because I agree with Steph. There's nothing really for him to do on the basketball court that he hasn't already done. He's completely changed the way the game is played. What player can say that? I mean, people could say, would Jordan change the game? Not everybody had the athleticism of Jordan. But what kids do, and you've probably seen this too. So I have a 7th grade stepson. I go to his basketball games. Every single kid, I'm not lying. You know this. You've probably seen it. There's 5 kids standing around the 3-point line, and they just jack. And they don't jack from like the line. If there's a kid in front of them, they take 2 steps back and jack again. They jack it up from there. And they make him at a decent rate. But watching kids basketball right now is just like watching the NBA. Well, there's no dunks, and it's okay. It's not like that in any way, shape, or form. But what I mean is, from a shooting standpoint, that's what they all think. Like, I'm just going to jack it. Well, that's Curry, and whether you want to say that's good or bad, he completely changed the game. He's the 3-point king. He's been the MVP. He's won enough championships. Like, there's nothing really individually he needs to do. The only reason he's hanging around, he's got plenty of money. The minute he walks off the court, he's a CEO somewhere. I see him as Peyton Manning. You could do the Curry cast, and he could bring in people. He's that good. He could be a politician, which I hope he isn't, because that's a nasty business. But, I mean, you name it. He could be CEOs of company. He could be a team owner. He could be – there's nothing that Steph couldn't do. So there's some of us in life who go, oh, my God, what am I going to do after this? I know I thought that. Like, what am I going to do? I've always done, I've always talked into a microphone. I just decided I'm going to keep talking into a microphone, but it's a different platform. But with Steph Curry, it's not like he's going to be one of those athletes that goes, man, my post-career, I just don't know what to do. There's going to be a million people knocking down his door. Now, I don't know that he's going to want to do some of the things. I don't see him being Tom Brady and being a broadcaster, but there's a lot of different things that Steph Curry could do. It's not like he wants for basketball and he could do nothing else in his life. Hell, he might want to go golf. I don't know. There's so many things he can do. He doesn't need money. He doesn't need, he's going to have a million endorsements. He's just going to be one of those rare guys. He could do anything. So he doesn't need to hang around. I think I'm getting his drift, which is I don't need to hang around and be on an average basketball team. So either that means we better upgrade, but he just said they don't want to mortgage the future. So those are two things that don't mesh together. Either you're mortgaging the future and you're trying to become better, or you're not, and you're going to be on an average basketball team. And if Steph Curry says you're insane if you think I want to be on an average basketball team, then he's going to ask for a trade at some point. So that's where I think all the confusion and contradiction comes in this whole thing for me is he said the other day, don't want to mortgage the future for this team, which superstars never say. And then last night he said, if you think I'm going to be, I'm happy being on an average basketball team, that you're insane. Well, which is it? You can't be both, because you're not going to sit here. As I went back to the beginnings of the origins of this dynasty of the Warriors, you weren't going to mortgage the future when you had a young Klay Thompson and trade him for Kevin Love, because that just means you're being impatient. So what did they do? They were very patient. They won multiple championships. That's when you don't mortgage the future. You don't mortgage a Klay Thompson for Kevin Love. No matter how banged up the ankles were for Steph Curry. Remember when Monte Ellis went in the Andrew Bogut trade? Some people insist that they gave Milwaukee a choice. Do you want Monte Ellis or do you want Steph Curry? I don't know that that's the case. I don't think they ever offered Steph Curry in that deal, but that a lot of people were really pissed at that deal, but they knew what they were doing. So they did strategic things, but they never mortgaged their future. When you're a young team, and I used Oklahoma City as the example, when you're a young team like Oklahoma City, you're not going to mortgage your future because you haven't won any championships. And if you're patient, you might just get one of those things. That's mortgaging the future. Where the Warriors are is not mortgaging the future. You've already had it. It's in the past. Your future is the lottery, whether you want to believe it or not, unless you get incredibly lucky and find a Kawhi Leonard like San Antonio did as they were going downhill. It's not going to happen. Now, is Kuminga that Kawhi? I don't think so, but it could be. So anyway, that's mortgaging the future. What they're doing is they've already won. They're not mortgaging the future. Yeah, first-round picks would be nice, but they don't always hit, especially in the NBA. It's not like the NFL where you have all these rounds, you get all these guys. It's really hard to hit unless you're in the lottery. And where the Warriors are, and you know this, they're kind of in that worst spot. Not bad enough to get a really great pick, and they tried with Wiseman, and I think Kuminga is going to be okay. But that's what I'm saying about the draft. It's a total crapshoot. 1 and 3 that year, Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball were great. You just happen to have pick 2. Wah, wah, wah. And if that guy had come through, then we'd be talking about a different thing. But my whole point of this is there's a contradiction going on with the Warriors that says we don't want to trade anybody and mortgage our future, even though there's not a lot to mortgage, to be honest. But we don't want to be a mediocre basketball team. Well, if you don't trade, you're going to be a mediocre basketball team. And generally, you're going to be a mediocre basketball team anyway, because there's not a guy that's going to move the needle enough. Unless you really want to be ballsy and try to get Zion Williamson. And I don't know that this organization has those kind of cojones. They might. Here's Steve Kerr last night.
Used to being in the spotlight, and if there's a story about our team, it's going to go everywhere, and everyone's going to talk about it. And It's I hope there's not a misconception that we're not fighting and scrapping and hoping, that we can, do everything possible to keep this thing going, because that's what we're doing. But it almost feels like the narrative became, Warriors are giving in. We're not giving in. We're just not going to give away the future. It's two totally different things. So we're fighting. You can see we've been competitive all year. We've had a few blowouts, but for the most part, our guys are competing like.
All right. So the point to me was he didn't want the misconception out there that they weren't fighting like hell. Nobody's doubting that they're fighting like hell, but he says, we just don't want to give away the future. So by that, he means Kuminga and first-round picks, because I certainly don't think anymore they believe that Brandon Podziemski is this untouchable. Certainly Wiggins, because of his salary, would have to go. Looney, I guess they would do. But when they say we don't want to mortgage the future, so then who's available? If you're going to make this trade that is going to take this team from 20-20, 500 on the road, 500 at home, the dictionary definition of an average basketball team, which Steph Curry says, if you think I want to be in an average basketball team, you're insane. So there's two totally separate things going. But in order to get said player who could make this team not average, you'd have to give something up. So are you giving up Wiggins and he's having a great season, and now would be a great time? I look at players like stocks. I mean, if you're looking at Andrew Wiggins, his stock is going like this. Now's the time. Now's, everybody wants to trade everybody low and get the return to be high. It's not how it works. If Andrew Wiggins is playing well right now, Andrew Wiggins should be traded so that his stock is at a high, even though he's going to play like this the rest of his career, because that's what he's done his entire career. He's on a hot spell right now, and everybody gets excited. And he was the former number 1 overall pick, this, that. He's an inconsistent player. He's been that his entire career. And I feel bad about the things that have happened to him off the court. But reality is reality, and he's been in the league long enough. He's an up and down player. And right now he's on a high. You sell stocks high. And he's got the salary, and you got to match salaries. All that stuff works in the NBA. So to me, Wiggins would be on the block right now if I want to get better. Kuminga, maybe, depending on what I'm getting in the return. Moody, I'd love to see on another team just because I think he can be a really nice rotational piece. He's got to be in there. Podziemski. The only thing that I think they're talking about when they say they don't want to mortgage their future is first-round picks, obviously Curry and Kuminga. That's about it. And everybody else, to me, should be on the table. Picks should be on the table. Everything should be on the table because, again, I go back to this. You're never going to get another Steph Curry. And there's this term that everybody talks about, you owe Steph. I agree with it. You do owe Steph. You wouldn't have an arena. You wouldn't be the wealthiest team in the league. You would, all these different things because of Steph. Everybody else is secondary in that. So to Joe Lacob, I'm going to my people because I have final decision making, and I say, get me a deal. This is why we're paying you. Get me a deal, Mike Dunleavy. And what Mike Dunleavy does, his job is that he goes out and then he vets all this stuff, and then it comes back to Joe Lacob and he says yay or nay. Mike Dunleavy doesn't make moves. Mike Dunleavy does all the work. He gets on the phones, all the texts, all the different things. He does all that, and then he presents them to Joe Lacob, and Joe Lacob says yay or nay. And in the back of my mind, I think Steph is being nice here by saying we don't want to mortgage our future. If you gave Steph true serum, he'd say, get me some damn help, will you? I mean, he said it to Malik Andrews like a month ago. We played that on the show where he said, yeah, we're trying to get better, and I'm running out of time. And that's when he was telling the truth. And now a couple of weeks later, he's saying, no, we don't want to mortgage our future. He doesn't care. Now, maybe he'll be owning the team, whatever the case may be. But if I'm Steph Curry, it's about winning championships. Mortgage the future. If I'm the Giants, if I'm the Niners, the Niners give up X round picks. I'm not going to do it for Trey Lance. But if you tell me that Myles Garrett is available, mortgage what? It's Myles Garrett or, some sort of quarterback, or who can get the Niners over the top. To me, it's very, very similar. The Niners are in a window in which they can win a title. They're different in the fact that they haven't won one. So I think the Niners are more desperate. Like, they'll give up more, even though they gave up those picks for Trey Lance. And you're probably saying to yourself, whoa, Lund, no, not going to do that again. But if it's for a known commodity that you think can get you over the top, if Bosa is opposite Garrett, you're not getting a lot of passes off. And if you are, it's going to be quickly. And that's going to help your secondary. There's all these different things they could do. And if Trent Williams retires and you could get yourself a great left tackle like they went from Staley to Williams, you're going to mortgage your future to do that. It makes sense. If you're the Giants, you're probably not in a mortgage position. You're probably like the early Warriors. You're not mortgaging anything. You're the fourth place team in the NL West. They're not one player away, so they're not mortgaging anything. But if you're a championship team, let's just expand it beyond the Bay. If you're a championship team, the Niners are in this window, and they say, you can give up X amount of first-round picks for give me the player, a player who is absolutely positively what you need and that can put you over the top. Of course you mortgage your future. I think one of the reasons the Warriors are saying we don't want to mortgage our future is to say we're not good enough to mortgage our future. We don't have one player that would say, put us over the top, unless it's, you can get Giannis for, Looney, and that doesn't work. That doesn't happen anymore. But if a player like Giannis was available and you could still keep Steph and Draymond and most of your team intact, well, yeah, you're going to mortgage it for that guy because that might put you over the top, but he's not going anywhere. The players that we've heard of, which don't mean that they're the players that are necessarily available. Maybe there's guys we haven't heard of that are available, but for the guys that we've heard of that are available, there isn't a player worth mortgaging your future for. But if I'm Joe Lacob, I'm telling Mike Dunleavy, this is what I hired you for. Go find said player and then come back to me with these things because I do owe Steph. And I don't care what the team is like when he's gone because if it's Kuminga, if it's Podziemski, if it's Wiggins, if Wiggins is your best player, hello, lottery. If it's Kuminga and Wiggins. But the thing about that, if there's no Steph and there's no Dre and it's Kuminga and Wiggins, where are you going? You better bring your rabbit's foot to that lottery. Hopefully you can get the first overall pick. So that's if I'm trying to speak logic into Joe Lacob, look, I know you want to keep the turnstiles moving because this is a business thing we're talking about too. I know you want to keep the turnstiles moving. I know you want to keep people in your shiny new arena. I know, but it doesn't exist. Again, throw the ball up, the ball comes down. The Warriors are working in the gravity zone now. It's starting to come down, and I don't know that there's anything they can do about it. All right, we've had enough of that, haven't we? Let's see. Nobody. Let's see. Yeah, what are people talking about? Some people were saying there were some things going crazy in the chat room here. What was going on? I missed it. Let's see. Oh, look at somebody's going Cooper Flag on us already. Cooper Flag, who's the number one player in America. He's a freshman at Duke. Yeah, now if you can get him, I mean, when you tank for a year, that was the whole thing with Wiseman. That was supposed to be like, oh my God, it's going to be the Kawhi thing. Like they just, Steph gets hurt. They win 15 games, got the number 2 overall pick. If they nail that pick, if it's LaMelo Ball, now look, I know Charlotte stinks. And by the way, the Ball brothers, LaMelo's really good. Lonzo's coming back. LiAngelo just got a TV deal. Respect, Lamar, respect. Those shoes were terrible, though. So anyway, all right. There's my rant on the it's so let Lacob get into his pockets for a superstar. I think that's what most people are thinking. Danny Golding TV, Monte was my favorite Warrior. Yeah, Monte back in the day, man. When I was 14, I remember being bummed that I couldn't find his jersey at a sports store in Phoenix before we drafted Clay. I remember thinking him and stuff. Yeah, that night was incredible. When Rick Barry was out there in his Daniel Boone hat yelling at the crowd. That was incredible. Little did we know that the Bogut trade would send them over the top. That was amazing. What a night that was. Unbelievable. Wow, here we go. We got our first trade, Steph. There's Steve. Trade Steph for good players. It won't happen. This team will now that Joe Lacob will never trade Steph. We got into that yesterday, where LeBron goes to Jeannie Buss, the owner of the Lakers, and says, "Yeah, I want to consider playing with Steph. Will you let me talk to him?" She's like, "Yeah, sure." The difference is that the Lakers are the Lakers, and he hasn't played there his whole career. Now, if that was Cleveland, and Cleveland had him his whole career, and he hadn't moved around, and he asked to be traded at this point of his career, Cleveland was like, I can't do it. The Warriors, if that would be the most interesting conversation we could ever have on this show. If Steph, because we just heard him say, if you think I'm good being on an average basketball team, you're insane. So I take that as a reporter a couple of different ways. A, even though the other day he said he wants to leave it better than he found it, he's absolutely telling them, look, let's stop being an average team. Or B, he's saying, if we continue to be an average team, I'm not ending my career this way. And we all think that guys want to be a one team guy, and some do. It was important to Kobe. I think it is important to Steph. I don't know that I know he's answered the question, but I don't think emphatically he said I would never want to go. I would never want to leave. Like some people have speculated he would want to go back to Charlotte. You and I have had this conversation a million times. Just because you're from somewhere doesn't mean that's where you want to go. You know, it's just people move. Not all your friends are there. Family moves there. The older you get, it's kind of like the old Aaron Judge thing. Everybody was convinced he wants to come home. You've probably taken a job somewhere else and then you've come home, or maybe you went to college and you came home and you realized it's not the same. Like my son's a junior in college. A lot of his friends don't live around here anymore. Their parents moved, or they went to Southern California, or they went out of state because it was so expensive and they were waiting for their kid to graduate. Then all of a sudden you come back and you're like, well, this isn't the same. So we all assume everyone wants to come home. Yeah, I want to come home. Well, Corbin Burns went to Arizona. That's not his home. He's actually from Bakersfield, but it was he and his wife's home. So, and they just had kids. I mean, that's different. Sometimes you do want to go home. Sometimes you can't help it. Kevin Durant's from Washington, D.C. Is he going to go play for the Wiz? Probably not. Maybe with a year left on his deal. Yeah, I'll go play for the Wiz. What the heck? I'll just go to my hometown team. But most times, guys don't want to go home. So I don't think Curry's going to Charlotte. Curry would go somewhere to win. My original question is LeBron, they love each other, especially since the Olympics. Let's say that LeBron goes to Curry and says, I know that Jeannie Buss let me talk to you, but how about you go talk to Joe Lacob? See if you can get down here. He couldn't be 2 steps into the door. As many things as Steph has done for Lacob and done for the Warriors, he'd be like, so, Joe, here's what I want to do. I want you to trade me. Did you just say trade? No. We're not trading you. What are you, insane? So I don't think he would. As much as he respects him, loves him, all those kind of things, I no way. No way. What else do we have today? Anything else? Let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. I haven't stayed up in the conversation today, and there's a lot of different wackiness. Let me go to the bottom here and see what's going on. Because what I do is when I go over to the chat line, I start at the bottom, and it's like, because I can't start at the top. There's hundreds and hundreds of these, and it's like, well, I can't make any sense of any of this kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Smiley Dan, you bring up a great point, which is where's home anyway? Steph's dad was a pro athlete, like a military kid. His dad played in Utah, Cleveland, Charlotte, Milwaukee, Toronto. I think just because that's where he was growing up, I think Charlotte is considered home for them. But you bring up a great point, because I did the same thing. Let's see. Todd says we want to call in. I heard. Are you referring to my good friend Walter? Walter told me the other day he's taking phone calls. I don't know about that. I don't know about that technology, but I'll look for it. Oh, so this is the conversation. I must have missed out on this. It says, Joy says, blown glass and showers. That's what we're talking about? Somebody can actually explain it to me further. Blown glass. How did that start? Believe me, I'm the king of tangents. You guys know that. I'll go off on a tangent left and right. Today I was going off on a tangent and I totally forgot what I was talking about. Then I got back to it about the Ford Fairmont. In fact, I got to look up a Ford Fairmont and show you this. Lucky for John. Thank you, Tacky. Lucky for John's Virgin Eyes. That convo is gone by now. Yeah, I didn't see it. Somebody's talking about ketchup. I could go on a total tangent about ketchup. Ketchup or ketchup. It's ketchup with a K, I believe. I could be 100% wrong. Oh my God, Nick. Are you bringing up Todd Fuller? I have a great Todd Fuller story, who they, of course, picked instead of Kobe Bryant because they were afraid of Kobe Bryant. Yeah, Todd, I'll look at the technology, Todd, and see if it can be done. I don't know if I was going to say, I don't know if I can tell the Todd Fuller story, but I could probably tell any story that I want. Given this, should I tell the Todd Fuller story before we get out of here today? And then I'll double check. First of all, 2 things. All right. Since we've been talking so much sports, let's go on a little bit of a tangent. Let me write these things down because I know I'll forget. I'm going to write down ketchup and I'm going to write down Todd Fuller. All right. Let me start with ketchup. I don't put ketchup on anything. And again, I'm not shaming anyone. This is one thing, again, about our country. And this is a free forum here. You can have whatever opinion you want. I really don't care. The only rule on the show and in the chat in general is no hate, no fighting, things like that. There's enough of this. So this is a safe zone in this place. All right. Everybody can say, honestly, I don't care. As long as it's not hateful. That's all I care about. But ketchup, I don't put it on hot dogs. If I do it in a sauce, and maybe you haven't done this, maybe you have, like, let's say you do fries. And I've told you, my dad had a license plate fry man, and he lived in Idaho, and it was all about French fries. So believe me, I've consumed probably more French fries than anybody has a right to in their entire life, because in our house, it didn't matter what we had. We could have pasta, my dad made fries. We could have tacos, my dad made fries. Like, it just, because that's what he did for a living. So, and he would always, what do you think of these? What do you think of these? He was a distributor of French fries and other things. So you know this. So I didn't even do ketchup, even though ketchup and fries is about the only thing I would do. But what really is good with fries is if you take barbecue sauce and mayonnaise. And I'm not a big mayonnaise guy. Never put mayonnaise on a sandwich. I got an Italian sandwich yesterday. You put olive oil on it, right? I mean, that kind of thing. I don't put mayonnaise on anything. And I don't really like ketchup, but mayonnaise and ketchup together, or mayonnaise and more so barbecue sauce together, you stir those together, and then you dip a fry in that. Good night. Like, that's what it's about. Yeah, fancy sauce. I mean, we call it fry sauce, whatever you want to do. But I don't do straight ketchup. Not on anything, not on a burger. I do like mustard, different things like that. It's got to have some kick to it for me. What else? I'm trying to think anything I put ketchup on. But again, I'm not that person. We're not having the conversation about whether ketchup is on a hot dog or anything. Like, look, if you like ketchup, like my wife will put on, like you have a breakfast or something. And if I do like eggs, bacon, potatoes, all that kind of stuff, you do like a general American breakfast. A lot of people will put like potatoes on we'll put ketchup on the potatoes or ketchup on the eggs. It's like, I'll do hot sauce. I'll do salsa, things like that. So a lot of things that people would put ketchup on, I'd put salsa on. I'm not a ketchup guy. If you are a ketchup person, that's fine. Honestly, I'm not telling anyone how to eat. I'm not. I like to stir my food together. You probably don't. Some people are OCD and you can't let the potatoes touch the meat. Let's go, man. I put that in a blender. No, I don't put that in a blender. But that's just how it is. Yeah, I missed it, but I just saw it flash by. It said that they didn't hear about fry sauce till Idaho. Idaho, Utah, there's it's all they do. Especially, I lived in Utah. It's all they have. Like, everything is fry sauce. Like, in your bag of fries, burger, whatever, all the local places, they just put fry sauce in. I was like, what is this? And when somebody put the barbecue mayonnaise together, it was like, get out of town. So good. So good. You know what's funny? In-N-Out fries has to be ketchup. See, that's cool, man. If that's your thing, that's totally cool. I'm just not that way. Somebody said Marcus puts ketchup on eggs. I'm just not a ketchup guy. Not a ketchup guy, but a lot of people are. It's totally fine. If I do it, I don't generally dip fries in. Now, I over salt them for sure. Like a little fries with your salt. So I over salt them for sure. But it's so weird because, like you said, I'm not a mayo guy either, but if you put mayonnaise with ketchup or mayonnaise with more so barbecue sauce, great dip. Great dip. If you don't like that, totally cool. And then see, the Todd says nacho cheese on a cinnamon pretzel. Have you guys we go on a food tangent every day. You know what's funny? I'm glad I wrote down the Todd Flow thing because I completely would have forgotten. So when the show notes are made after the show, so you go back to YouTube or wherever, or if you go to the podcast, those are AI generated notes, and I just stick them in the show, because then what happens is you can go to the chapters, and if you don't want to talk about food or anything like that, you just want sports and Steph and Maiocco and Emerman and all that stuff, then you can just click past all this stuff that I do, all the weird stuff. And so it's funny because on the AI notes, I'll look down and it'll be like, then it'll explain it in some weird way about like food, ketchup, culinary or something like that. Then I have to rewrite the thing because it's like, nah, that's not really what we did. But we do like to go on tangents. The one thing I will say, because somebody just said nacho cheese on a cinnamon pretzel, which doesn't sound great, but a lot of things that are really good sound like, oh my God, I would never do that. And then you try it and you go, eh. Like, I'll give you, man, I was going to give you a different example, but I'll give you a great example. We were at a place over the weekend. We were up in Napa, and it's a place in Sonoma called The Bear. I don't know if you've ever been there. If you ever have an opportunity to go there, incredible. The service was great. The food was great. They're not giving me a dime. I ended up having chilaquiles, which is, but it wasn't like the normal, like, tortilla chips and everything, just like a special kind of like a square chip. and it had what did it have there? It had some sort of I think it had pork and green sauce, and it was just incredible, and eggs and all the whole thing. It was absolutely, positively incredible. And again, I forgot where I was going with that conversation, but that place was absolutely great. God, where was I going with that? I had something with that. Man, that makes me mad. I was talking about things that don't. Oh, I know what it was. So then afterwards, I would never have tried this. So my wife goes to the bathroom and they bring out, because my friend had been there before and had asked him, "Do you have this certain kind of ice cream?" And they said, "Yes. We don't normally serve it at brunch, but we'll serve it because we like you." And they weren't talking to me, believe me. It was. I know this sounds crazy. It was sourdough ice cream, sourdough like the bread ice cream, and we thought to ourselves, "No way." So the guy brings it, and it looks like mashed potatoes. And then he takes this caramel sauce, takes a ladle of caramel on this caramel sauce, hot caramel sauce, and puts it on top of it. So now it looks like mashed potatoes and gravy. It looks like mashed potatoes and gravy. And I look at it and I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to eat that. Then my wife comes back from the bathroom and I tell her, because she's extremely gullible. And if she's in the chat room, and I'm sure she's listening right now, you can almost get anything by her, almost anything by her. And so she sits down and I go, "That's our dessert." And she goes, "Well, what is it?" I said, "It's mashed potatoes and gravy, but you got to try it. It's an amazing mashed potatoes and gravy." And it looked kind of like a KFC mashed potatoes and gravy. So it had the middle is all in and it looks like gravy. And she takes a bite of it. She's like, "Oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever had." And it was sourdough ice cream with caramel sauce on it, where it's like, you're thinking to yourself, there's no way that's going to be good. Amazing. I know where I was going. Thanks, Todd. He says cinnamon with the nacho cheese. So you would think to yourself that would be terrible. And so I go and there's these pretzels. And I think Justin Jefferson was the one who turned me on to them. But they're these pretzels and they're in I can't remember the brand. You probably know. They make like honey mustard and different types. It's a really good pretzel brand. And they do cinnamon and sugar pretzels. And I'm telling you, if you open the bag, exactly. Chilaquiles. Chilaquiles is it's like tortilla chips, and then it's got the eggs and the sauce and the cheese and the whole thing. And it's really like nachos for breakfast, and it's totally cheating. These are the best ones I ever had. But to stay on track for just a second, don't buy these pretzels. They're cinnamon and sugar pretzels. They have like purple on the bag. And Justin Jefferson, I don't know how he stays skinny. I mean, he is young after all. Dots, that's the ones. And you opened up his snack thing, and he has every bad thing ever for you. Candy, like theater candy, all this different stuff he eats all the time. And he had a bag of those pretzels, like Dots. I think you're right. And it's Dots, and it has like purple on the bag. Don't buy them. It is honestly like eating crack. And you cannot stop. You know the commercials where they're like Lay's, you just can't eat one? Lay's are greasy. Like I could eat one easily. There's certain things where it's, certain things salty. But what it is these are salty and sweet. They should be outlawed. You open up the bag. So it's, it's your salty, it's your pretzel, and then it's cinnamon and sugar on the pretzel. They're sticks. And you're like this. You're just like a vacuum cleaner. Like you're just sucking them in. That wasn't a vacuum cleaner sound. It wasn't very good. But you just suck these things up, and all of a sudden you look down and you're like, oh my God, and it's a big, that's your normal size big bag of pretzels. And I, at one time, the only time I bought them one time, and I ate like 3/4 of the bag watching a football game. And then you get thirsty too. So you're drinking the whole time. And I look down and I'm like, I must have consumed 5,000 calories just now. And I don't know, 6 gazillion grams of sugar. Oof, not buying those again. Don't buy them. Do not buy them. They are insane. I do love pretzels though, man. We could go on a tangent. All right, one more story before we get out of here. If you got any other, see, EB here says donuts, cheese, and pretzels. Zion would love to. That's a good point. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying is that when we have the notes, when AI generates the notes of the show, to be like sports, crazy tangent, sports, crazy tangent, food. I don't know. It's just every single day. Pretzels are not bad for the gut. Everything in moderation, right? I mean, that's like what your doctor tells you. Like if I had, here's what you should really do. I'm old enough to know that you shouldn't take the bag with you. So you take a little bowl out, you put in a handful of pretzels, and you're okay. I could buy those cracked pretzels if I had any kind of discipline to just put them in a little bowl. But then what I would do is I would put them in a little bowl, chow them, and then go back and get more and more and more. And then finally I just go, I'm just going to take the bag. So if I had any kind of discipline and could show that I could do that, then I could do that. So anyway, all right. I told you I would give you a Todd Fuller story. So he's one of the most disliked figures in Golden State Warriors history, only because it's this. He was taken 2 picks ahead of Kobe Bryant. Everybody was told don't pick Kobe Bryant. I wouldn't. If I was an owner of a team or a GM or whatever, if you tell me not to pick you, it's kind of like this is just it's kind of a life thing. If you tell me don't eat that, your parents tell you don't date that guy, don't drink that, then that's what you do. Like, don't tell me what not to do, because that's what I'm going to do. So if back in the day, the Warriors were on the clock and everybody's like, Kobe Bryant's representatives were like, don't take Kobe. I'd be like, if he's the best player, I'm taking him. But this was back in the day where you could actually take a big white center and think to yourself, yeah, he might be all right. It's like, no John Koncak, no Todd Fuller, no Joe Klein. Like, it's like, no. So I was working in Utah at the time, and my job, it was, I think you'll get a kick out of this. I think this is a good enough story to play up a little bit. So what I used to do, this is my first job in radio, is that I was the pre-half and post guy for the Utah Jazz Radio Network. And as part of that, I was for a while the opposition. So I would go to, like I said, I've talked about this a million times. In the 97 and 98 finals, I was the Bulls locker room guy. So I would take a live mic and have a headset on, and I would say to my producer, they're doing the post-game show, and I'd say, hey, I have Scottie Pippen here. And then they'd say, hey, and let's throw it to the Bulls locker room where John Lund has Scottie Pippen. And I'd do like 2 minutes with Scottie. I'd ask him first, hey, is it cool to talk? Yeah, whatever. So then they give me up. Ooh, Greg Ostertag. Look at that. I got Greg Ostertag stories through the roof. So then eventually I get to be the hometown guy. And so I would do the Jazz locker room. And they would tell me, my first interview was with Jerry Sloan. I'd go out there, and Jerry Sloan had bad cigarette breath. I've told you that. And I'm like, oh. So I'm doing this interview with Jerry Sloan. That was part of the post game. And that's brought to you by Smith Supermarkets. Back to you guys courtside. And then I'd go into the locker room, and then it would just kind of be random people, whoever would do. So I would do after I would do a player interview. So it was Jerry Sloan, it was player of the game, and then it was just random people. I get 3 or 4 more guys, and then that would be it. So Todd Fuller gets traded over to the Jazz, and I don't know, he has like a decent game. He was the player of the game because he was new, but he probably had like 11 points, 8 boards, something like that, comes off the bench. So they're like, Todd Fuller is the player of the game. The Jazz know, the PR people, he's waiting for you. You're all good. And so then Todd Fuller, I'm talking to Todd Fuller and everything. And I understand. And this is an old debate. You're in their space. It's their locker room. It's, be a professional, all that kind of stuff. Keep your eyes up, all that. So Todd Fuller's standing there, and he's in a towel at first. And then the towel comes off, whatever. We're still talking. And he takes the lotion, and, he's lotioning himself up, and I'm a true professional. So I'm just kind of like, are you serious here? Are we doing this? And so, you couldn't have waited 2 minutes, and he's just lotioning away. And I'm just like, and anyway, so how is it? Are you getting settled here in Salt Lake City? Everything going well for it? And he's like, yeah. As he's lotioning it up. And I'm just like, all right, that was fun. So anyway, yeah. And that kind of became a running joke in the locker room there for a while, where guys, I would do that, and it's time for player of the game. And then Antoine Carr would do the same thing. And, you remember Antoine Carr, the former King. And that's what these guys would do. So they were testing my professionalism, because they would all take their lotion and they would all kind of do their business while I was trying to interview him. And somebody just mentioned Ostertag. He was the worst. I would be doing an interview with somebody. And again, remember, we're live on the air, and he would jump in and curse and things like that. And we're in Salt Lake City, and I'd just be like, and the guy's a monstrous guy. And I was like, dude, could you you can't yell an F-bomb in the middle of my thing. And so now I got a guy lotioning himself up, and I'm trying to stay professional. And another guy jumping in there who's, for me to call somebody sophomoric is insane, but still, he's a bit sophomoric, jumping in with an F-bomb every time I did an interview. I'm like, bro, come on, man, help me out. Anyway, that's it. Hi, MF49. Are there a report on Pete Alonso? Oops, sorry, wrong one. Come on, get with it, Lund, will you? Alonso is signing out. So I didn't report that, but I don't think he's coming here. I've definitely said that numerous times, that if he's going to do a 1-year deal, I certainly don't think that he's going to do it here. Yeah, he was drafted by Charlotte. Somebody just, what's going on? Oh, I was moving too fast. Somebody said Kobe wasn't drafted. Yeah, he was drafted by the Charlotte Hornets and traded for Vlade Divac. Yeah, but he went 13. My point is that Kobe went 13 to Charlotte. and the Warriors had the 11th pick in the draft. So Kobe's people were saying, no, 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 no. He won't sign with you. He won't stay with you. Charlotte drafted him at 13, and they already had a deal in place for Vlade Divac. And so Vlade Divac went to Charlotte. I think there was a pick or something involved. And Kobe went to the Lakers. That's how that all went down. And that really, that brings us back to the Warriors. There used to be dumb GMs in the league, like Isaiah Thomas just did dumb things. And obviously, was it David Kahn who drafted both Johnny Flynn and Ricky Rubio ahead of Steph Curry, 2 point guards back to back. And it was like, what are you doing? It just doesn't seem like they're those guys anymore that you can take advantage of as much. Now, it doesn't mean they don't exist clearly, because Karl Anthony Towns is in New York and Minnesota got Julius Randle. So, I mean, if you can get one of those guys, Minnesota still does that stuff. I mean, after all, they did, basically give you Jonathan Kuminga and Andrew Wiggins for D'Angelo Russell. So, yeah, there are some people like that. Should have told Fuller about drinking tequila in the shower. What else do we got here? Kellen Moore to Dallas makes sense, MF. I've said that the whole time. If I was a betting man, I don't know what the odds are for Kellen Moore, but I'm just saying, a former player, former coach, knows his place within Jerry's pecking order, which is Jerry above everybody else. Then I think that's the way things are going to go down. Anything else I missed today? Hang on one second. We've been going about 2:25. And by the way, if you missed the show today, Matt Maiocco joined us early at 8:15. And then Danny Emerman was cool enough to call us from, I think it was in Dallas. He, of course, covers the Warriors for the Bay Area News Group, and he was cool enough to join us to give us a little insight on the Warriors last night, which seems to be going back and forth. Was there anything I missed today? We already talked about the donut shortage. Let's see. Oh, by the way, if you liked Emerman, that's his. Somebody would hit me up on that. That's at Danny Emerman, Warriors beat guy for the Bay Area News Group, and he joined us a little bit earlier as well. So make sure, as did Matt Maiocco, and Matt Maiocco didn't seem to be as impressed as I was that we had actually given him his own background. Like, there's Matt Maiocco up in the left-hand corner there. He didn't seem to be very impressed that that's what I did for him. So we'll put him away. Recap, episode 33 today. Matt Maiocco joined us. 49ers off-season we discussed. Lots of good stuff there. I will separate out these interviews, by the way. I will have a full show. If you missed any of the show, we'll post a recap and a podcast anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, wherever. Curry Worry, we played all that for you. Curry spoke 3 times. We played that, played some Kerr for you. Warriors future, we discussed ad nauseum almost. Random stuff, and I never know what it's going to be. That's why you people are also great, because honestly, I didn't think to myself we're going to talk a bunch about pretzels or sauce or ketchup or Todd Fuller. Like, that wasn't on the agenda today. Not in the slightest, was it? But then it's like random stuff. So I'm just going to start putting that in there. I don't really have a caboose day. I apologize. Some days I do, some days I don't. Let's see if I got anything. And this isn't caboose at all, but this is kind of funny before we get out of here. I'm looking at the audio that I have today. This is funny, and I didn't play this. This is not a caboose pistol, but I don't know if you saw the cut with Anthony Edwards after the game last night. And, Edwards, of course, picked one pick ahead of Wiseman. So it'd be really nice to have this guy. They would extend their window if they had this guy. But here's what he said about Steph Curry last night and how difficult he is to guard. This is kind of funny.
Like, I don't think it's so much of Steph, because everybody know how great he is moving without the ball, with the ball. But I think his teammates plays a huge role in that too. Like, every time they touch the ball, they like, where he at? You know what I mean? So either he's coming, either you trying to deny him on the top side and he's cutting for a layup, or your low man got to pull in. They got Buddy Hill in the corner. So like they did good, man. They did good.
Think you guys could ever get to something like that?
We don't have Steph Curry.
Right.
Hell,
you have a pretty good shooter though.
Who? Dante? Me? Yeah, but I can't run around like that all day, man. You're gonna see me pass out in the second quarter running around like Steph. Nah, no.
I ain't running around like that. I would pass out in the second quarter. So I thought that was good. Yeah, I was just double checking my the things that I had on my screen here, and that's one thing that I hadn't played. So I thought that was pretty funny. All right, anything else from anybody today? Thank you so much, as always. I really appreciate you hanging out. Had a tremendous time with everybody today. As I'm looking, everybody was in here today. Very cool. Please tell your friends, family, enemies, everything else. Please make sure that you're subscribing on the YouTube channel. At John Lund Unleashed Pod is where we are on YouTube. We post stuff throughout the day. So if you miss things, we post shorts in a few minutes and we shorten it out. I'll put both interviews, not only the whole show, but separately. So Danny Emerman, who covers the Warriors for the Bay Area News Group, who you should be following, Matt Maiocco, the great Matt Maiocco, who joined us right off the jump here to talk some 49ers offseason. He was really great, as always. So I will separate those out if you missed it. If you missed anything on the show, you can go back and watch the show. That way, we are live every day, not only on YouTube, but on X and Instagram. We will be playing, or we will be expanding that as well. So stay tuned. All the social media channels, especially on Twitter, at John Lund Radio. Follow, questions, comments. You can always hit me up there. You can hit me up in the comments here on YouTube. And as I always tell everybody, you'll probably get sick of hearing this if you're in here every day. I love differing opinions. So if you like something, you don't, whether it's something I say, whether it's, I don't know, whether it's something where, you know, you disagree with a take of mine, whether you want something different on the show. So that's just kind of how things work. Oh, Nick J, you just saved me a phone call because you said you go 8 to 10:30. Damon Bruce goes 11 to 2, and then Larry random throughout the day. Because I was going to call those guys and be like, let's make sure that we're not like stepping on each other, you know? So anyway, Jason, great show today. John, looks like your subscribers keep climbing. Yeah, we are definitely getting up there. So Jason, thank you very much. Like I said, it's due to you guys because, you know, if I sat here and just yapped to myself all day long, it would be pretty boring. So we're just trying to put on a great show. And as I said, feedback is absolutely key. If you like something, if you don't like that we're going 8 a.m. in the morning, if you don't, you know, at random times, I've asked you about Saturdays. If you want to do Saturdays, maybe like 10 or something, if you like more night shows, just let me know because we want to be here for you. That's why we're doing it. It's why I'm doing it. And so it's just a lot of fun and we can get into those things. So question, comments, thoughts. Yeah, I'm going to do this on Saturday, and we'll see how everything goes. But I know Krug does a Saturday show, so I'm going to make sure I'm not stepping on his toes. But I want to do a Saturday show, you know, because I don't want you guys to have to get your butts out of bed like really super early. So anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. I think about 10 o'clock on Saturday, and I'll start doing some more nighttime shows as well because a lot of people jump in after games. Like, honestly, I probably should have done post Warriors last night because not so much that Minnesota is such a great team or a great game, but there was a lot of stuff going around the Warriors that we got into today. But I certainly want to continue to get into those conversations. So again, please subscribe. The podcast we'll put right up there on Apple and Spotify. We'll grow the Lund loyalists. We'll make sure that we're doing shows just for the Lund loyalists. We'll clips to the Lund loyalists. We'll get the videos out faster for the Lund loyalists. So if you want to join the club, you can do that. I think it's only $5 a month, and I will make it more than worth your while. Thank you so much too for the supers, couple of bucks in the kitty today from our good friend Daniel. Thank you very much. The Warriors are washed. He's a Kings fan, clearly. So anyway, had a great time as we always do on the show. And as I said, questions, comments, thoughts, any of those kind of things, we love to hear those things. So make sure that you are hitting us up with that. I think we have done all the damage we can do today. I hope you have an amazing Thursday. Danny Emerman joined the show. Maiocco joined the show. Tomorrow, we've got a couple of guests in the hopper. I'm not sure exactly what time, so I'll wait. But as I said, have those alerts on so you know when we go live and you know about all the guests that we're having on the show and everything else. I think that's it. Have I not covered something? Let me make sure that I've covered everything. I think I have. All right, Friday, tomorrow, 8 a.m. Pacific time, throughout the day, nights, all those kind of things. We will get back together on a fun Friday. By the way, if you have a question for a poll tomorrow, I got to do a Friday's big poll, so we'll do that as well. So again, YouTube, Instagram, and X. We're live every day at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Have a wonderful, wonderful Thursday.
Thanks for hanging out with John Lund Unleashed. We'll try to be better next time, though I wouldn't hold my breath. Please like and subscribe on the John Lund Unleashed Pod YouTube channel. Watch live shows weekdays at 8 a.m. on YouTube, Instagram, and X. And make sure to have your alerts on for shows throughout the day or night. All things Lund can be found at johnlundunleashed.com. johnlundunleashed.com.
Goodbye!